Hello. Welcome. I have more volume in my hair today. So there's that. That's happening. Oh, it's another day, another stream in fascist America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. I'm Aubri Devashrayee. This is Juniper. She's joining us again. For a little bit today, because normally, she follows me around quite a bit. Not all the time, but it's very sweet, and she's my little friend. She's my little companion. And I wasn't seeing her earlier today, and then I got nervous. I was like, where is she? Oh no. And then she came out of the office looking so tired. Hello, Mr. Goodtime. Welcome. Good to see you. First. You're good. Welcome. Good to have you here. How are you doing this day? This fine day? I mean, I guess that's subjective, if it's fine or not. Is it fine for you? Anyway, I wasn't able to find Juniper, this lovely feline, earlier today, and I was like, oh no, where is she? And then she came out of the office looking very tired and had something that I call like bed body instead of like bed head, where like her fur is all matted, and she was like, ugh. I'm like, oh, she was sleeping in her little bed. Having a good time. Well, the name is fitting then, I have to say. Glad to hear it. All right. Today, I'm going to continue talking about headlines, some current events that are going on, especially when it comes to this data center that's being built in Utah, the place that I'm located. And I recently found out that this is not the only AI data center that is being built. I'm not surprised by this, but we are getting more information that's being unearthed by just everyday people who are having to do the sleuthing, having to do the investigating, and the checks and balances, all of the reporting as well on environmental, energy, human impacts. Because guess what? The government is choosing not to do this. They are intentionally saying that all of these things are national security projects in order to circumvent the normal checks and balances that happen with projects like these, that they have to normally get all of these reports from experts to prove that what they're about to embark on, these projects, are not going to be incredibly harmful. And I wonder why they don't want to have to turn in these reports or have to feel like they're held accountable to people who understand the impacts. Because it's extremely harmful to the environment, energy usage, and to human beings. So already the Great Salt Lake is drying up. Arsenic that is in the Great Salt Lake, radioactive toxins, are already being blown around in the air. People who are living closest to the lake are already experiencing these negative health impacts. And all of this data is incredibly suppressed by the government. I would know. I used to work for the state health department. So I also worked in the tobacco prevention and control program, where we could not talk about environmental pollution affecting people's lung health really at all. That any mention of this would not get approved in all of our reports, because if we are being responsible in talking about the long-term impacts of people's lung health, just overall health, when it comes to living in Utah, use of tobacco products has an impact, but it's very disingenuous to then also be suppressing data about the toxins that people are breathing in, especially when a few months ago, Utah had some of the worst air quality in the entire world. Like, many Utah cities, more than LA, more than New York City. It was up there with Beijing and New Delhi. I've been to New Delhi, and there are times where you can't even like see down the block. So that's where we're at. And we are being sold out by our politicians to all of these billionaires and corporations. The corruption is rampant. I made a video on this that you can look up. I'm going to, and I posted it on YouTube. I'm going to continue talking about the corruption, especially as this organizing group that I'm a part of, we are doing more research as to all of what is going on so that we can highlight just how naked the corruption is, that the same people who are helping to get these politicians elected are the same ones who are part of the corporations that are directly benefiting from these AI data centers. So that's a lot, but a quick rundown of what's been going on. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I did see that PBD, normally I'm not one to actually engage with any of Patrick Bet-David's content whatsoever. I only see people like react to his content because I can't be bothered to like watch a full session of his content. And I saw that he actually came out yesterday with a video that is highlighting this AI data center. And since he tends to be very sympathetic towards capitalists, the ruling class, because guess what? He is a capitalist. It is interesting to hear that they're even addressing this, and the headline is 3 times bigger than Manhattan. Mega AI data center sparks tech war with Americans. It's not a tech war, it's a war on civilization in Utah, quite literally, because with all of the energy that it will take up, the ecosystems that it's destroying, we will have full-on collapse of the whole state. Not to mention that farmers are already having a difficult time with their crops and not having enough water because Governor Cox, Caillou Cox, Governor Flaccid Cox, if you will, he is already in bed with so many corporations and not preserving the Great Salt Lake. I actually heard from a realtor that I know and am friends with who is not leftist by any means, seems to have pretty conservative views, that it is just kind of accepted among realtors that they all know that politicians and corporations are wanting the Great Salt Lake to dry up so that they can use the land for infrastructure. They don't really care that it's not stable, that land, that they're wanting to use these like platform things, but also build prisons out there, other data centers, and they don't care that it's going to get people sick because guess what? We're in late stage capitalism. So that's an overview of the state of affairs happening in Utah. There will be more information coming out continually that I will keep you apprised of, and also information on how people can get involved if you are interested, because this not only affects people in Box Elder County, the main place where the largest AI data center that people are mostly focusing on that's being built, or where that's being built, but it affects all of Utah because, as we have seen in West Virginia and other states, that the energy use for these AI data centers is just monstrous, where people's utility bills are more than their mortgages. And we have a report most recently that says that the AI data center is going to take around 16 to 17 gigawatts of power. And Utah, the whole state of Utah, uses about 4 gigawatts of power each year on average. So that is more than 4 times the use. And what does that mean for our utility bills? It is going to reflect those numbers. So we need to keep talking about it. It's good to see more coverage on this. I'm surprised that we're getting more coverage on this with more conservative right-wing spaces, but that goes to show how how large the support is in Utah, that this is the most uniting issue I have ever seen for as long as I've lived in Utah, which is my whole life, with some years not living here, like a few years. But it really is a bipartisan issue. Like, people care about what's going on, whether they're conservative, whether they're Democrat, leftist, whatever you have it, whatever the political affiliation is, people are very upset, and rightly so, because it's going to devastate the economy, take away so many jobs, and especially with them saying that it's about national security, it mostly is being, well, it is being spearheaded by this military board that is part of the state. So it's going to be used for surveillance, it's going to be used for warfare, and the people who are already profiting the most from our exploitation are the same ones who are invested in the industrial war complex as well as AI. So we see how this incestuous circle jerk of exploitation and capitalist greed just continues with the ingratiation of the private sector and corporations with the government. So, yeah, that's what's happening. And we need to keep talking about it. So, we'll go over that today, continue talking about that. And then we will continue, or not continue, we will talk more about organizing workplaces, especially when it comes to labor unionizing, and talk about helpful tactics for striking, because in my opinion, we need a statewide strike to create the most pressure to prevent these AI data centers from being built, as well as to reclaim power back from the politicians who are bought and sold by these corporations, who are not clearly listening to the voice of the people, because they are getting an overwhelming response of disapproval and anger about what's happening, and they're just ignoring us. Surprise, surprise. This is par for the course, but that's just part of the larger pattern of, living in the US. And I also think we need a national strike to stop what's happening. If you're interested in joining this, you can look up General Strike US, where you can learn about the national strike efforts that are being organized and pursued. You can submit demands, sign a strike card, and there is regular education content that comes out every week that is very helpful if you are wanting to learn more about it as well, not just for the national strike, but just organizing in general. And we also need a world strike, again, in my opinion, to stop all of the unconscionable, imperialist, immoral violence that is happening, that is being pursued by the US empire and Israel, and all of these nation states, especially when it comes to the West, that are complicit with this, because we are tired of genocide. We shouldn't be supporting genocide. It shouldn't have to be said. Like, that should just be a basic, but here we are. Here we have been. And we also need to reclaim our power, because what's happening here, like in Utah, even, for instance, in Box Elder County, this county that hardly gets any news coverage at all in the past, the reason it is being highlighted so much is because a billionaire who doesn't live in the state, who isn't even from this country, who has investments all around the globe, is the one who is owning this Stratos project. And it is setting a pattern and dangerous precedent for pursuing these kinds of actions, just growing this global capitalization, late stage capitalism. And it has to end, because we are endlessly exploited and we need to take our power back. I realize this is an enormous endeavor, but also we need to do something, and we have to start somewhere. So that's my rationale. Probably wishful thinking, naive. I've been told this. But also, how else do we stop what's happening? Because these people in the ruling class are not going to stop on their own. We have to make them. Hello, Linton. Welcome. Good to see you. How are you doing? All right. My rant is over, but for now, because I will pick it up as we go along with this stream, because that's what I do here. Okay. So there is this creator named RM Brown that I was recently introduced to, that he has been creating stuff for a long time, from what I can see. And it just is a lot of absurdist trolling of like the right wing and the slop tubers, people who are claiming to do journalism or like have knowledge about things that they don't. So I am entertained by that. It's a great way to be updated on these people and what they're talking about without having to listen to their slop personally, and I love that. So good late night smoke sesh time. Love. I'm jealous. Sounds great. A good time. Speaking of a good time, Mr. Good Time. We're getting closer and closer to Cyberpunk 2077. Yep, exactly. Except without like some of the like badass fashion and aesthetics. Although I do feel like young people and these upcoming generations, like there's a reason why like punk and like metal and like rap that's based in a lot of anger about material conditions, why all of this is having a resurgence. And you know, it's sad but true that when material conditions are disintegrating, when people are feeling oppressed, that this is when some of the best art happens. And it shouldn't have to take that, but it's when we are forced to engage in art in this way. Okay, shall we get into the funny video that I have? I thought it would be a good tee up for the PBD video on the AI Center as well. So we'll see what this has in store for us. I have not seen it yet. Okay. So RM Brown, this is from May 1st, so it's been out for a bit, but it's called PBD Show Keeps Getting Crazier. And I don't really know how that is possible, but here we are, and we'll see what he has to say.
Ooh, did you ever think you could make it?
Oh my God.
I don't give a rat's ass what you think of me, cause my name is
Paulette Davidson?
Well, what's that? We're on now.
Editing and like
Jesus
the soundboard he
God,
uses.
that's right. Today we're looking at
Paulette Davidson?
Taking a look at my man Paul Bed.
Yeah, it's very extra and all over the place, but it's very much like ADHD humor, I think. Hello, Tan. Welcome. Good to see you.
Davidson, what the hell's he up to?
what the heck is my
How are you
favorite
doing?
YouTuber Paul Davidson up to?
Next story is, so Jimmy Kimmel,
Who?
a few days
my
ago,
God.
makes a comment about President Trump's wife
Oh,
and says, you look
illegal.
like, just go to my Twitter account if you don't have it, you look like an expected widow, right?
Okay.
And that
That's
goes
weird.
viral. Everybody starts talking about it. Wait a minute, why would he
Okay.
say such a thing, right? That's the clip right there. It's 7 seconds.
He constantly is just like interrupting people. Something that I love about this is like what he says a lot of the time, like it's just so absurd that it's like, how do you even combat what he's saying? So I love that. Oh, also, Tan, guess what? I'm doubled up on my drinks today. I'm ready. Cats are feeding, so they care just a little more for me. Yep. That's what they do. We sometimes have to bribe their affection, but that's okay. So she just sneezed. It was so cute. How are the cats doing? Cheers, exactly.
Oh, he makes this comment.
Non-alcoholic,
We need audio, guys,
but
in the back.
still a good
First
time.
Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow.
Okay, so he makes this
Illegal.
comment.
Right.
Then the First Lady, Melania Trump, responds in a tweet.
Oh, thank God.
And she comes out and she says, Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country. His monologue about family isn't comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens.
Okay, hell yeah, bro.
Hell yeah, dude.
PB has been uploading some...
Hell yeah, dude. And meanwhile, Melania's like this violent, hateful rhetoric. Her husband has been launching genocidal threats at Iran. Silence from her when that happens. Silence when he is talking about the enemy from within, sending people to concentration camps, him targeting his political enemies, pursuing ethnic cleansing in the name of white supremacy and Christian nationalism. But when it comes to her, it's like, yeah, the selfishness and just like sheer audacity is wild to be like, this is violent rhetoric. Okay, bitch, your husband started a war. That's violent rhetoric and action. So what are we talking about here?
funny stuff lately. He's a kook. He's one of our foremost public kooks.
Paul Davidson,
AKA
Hassan Parker.
And this is a funny one. He's been going on and on for days about this. He's a pissed off.
He's all worked up in his little slacks.
His little business slacks about Jimmy Kimmel. This is like what?
He always
like
has
every
multiple
month or
shirts
something?
on.
They're like, Jimmy Kimmel, go to...
In Mormonism, there's something called garments, if you don't know. The like magical underwear that people wear when they go through the temple to signify covenants and promises that you make that you don't find out about, you don't learn about until you're there being asked to promise to obey these things. So, informed consent, who, what? But this reminds me of the celestial smile is what it is called in Mormonism, when you can see someone's like garments peeking out or like the line of it under their clothes. Anyway.
Hell.
Jimmy Kimmel needs to go to hell.
Who's watching that? By the way, quick note, who's watching Jimmy Kimmel? For all anyone knows, Jimmy Kimmel is still doing like the trampoline. What's he doing on there? Is he still doing the Karl Malone thing?
People...
I don't know. Who knows?
I don't even really care about
But
Jimmy
PBD
Kimmel.
is highly pissed
but
off at Jimmy Kimmel. So they're
the
doing
way
their little
he's
Kimmel
been
segments,
attacked
and this
is really
kinda funny. Here
wild.
we go. Go ahead, PB. What do you got to say about this?
Okay, so that's that.
PB.
That causes FCC to call on Disney stations for early license review in wake of Kimmel saga.
Okay.
The FCC is expected to call the license Disney for license review as soon as Tuesday, which was yesterday, marking significant escalation tensions between the media giant and Trump administration. Disney's own ABC affiliates will have to prove FCC Chairman Brandon Carr that they have...
Why is it with all of these right-wing grifters, they have the weirdest backgrounds? Like Alex Jones, it's always like Microsoft 97 screensavers. Like, what is the rationale? Is it just because it's like boomer people? Boomer coded Gen Xers? I don't know. I mean, we can't rely on right-wing people to be making things that are like artistic or original, because that's the antithesis of what they stand for.
However, the response to it, I think, has been playing
What
right
is
into his
this?
hands. Don't make the guy a martyr.
Okay.
Don't make the narrative
Don't make the
that
guy a
Jimmy Kimmel
dollar.
was taken out by Trump, who's acting as an authoritarian.
Okay, this is sort of funny. PBD has these guys on his show. Nobody knows who the hell these guys are.
Exactly.
Who are these guys? This was actually a very disappointing episode because my main Pendejo. Tom, nowhere to be found. But he's got these guys on the show. It's like, who are these guys? Just some dudes wandering around Fort Lauderdale or wherever the hell Patrick lives. But this is kind of a funny segment because PBD's like, oh, there's some tweet or truth or something
Oh, there's some posts.
by the president or somebody. that says, oh, Jimmy Kimmel is in trouble. We're going to do legal stuff on Jimmy Kimmel. And then they play the clip and it's just like boring, just like a boring late night joke. You know, he's basically like, Trump sucks. So PBD kicks it over to the
Unknown
man number 1 and 2 on his panel. And it's kind of funny. They're just like, yeah, I don't know. The guy does like a boring late night show. That's not illegal, you know? Telling jokes or what, it's like not illegal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe you should focus on other stuff or something. This is kind of you can
Legalized
tell PBD is
comedy.
getting pissed off by this because they're all just like, yeah, I don't know. Jimmy Kimmel he sucks, but it's not illegal to do a late night talk show. Let's see PBD's response.
Is not
So,
that
we
funny.
need to fight like hell to protect against
I
that.
don't think
instead of
anyone
using the government as a weapon for the
thinks
short amount
otherwise.
of time that he's in office.
Right.
For many
Yeah,
people.
Look, I'm with that on what the FCC is doing. I will tell you, there's a group of people on what he said. To me, there is a group of people that voted the president in to go after the criminals, okay, to go get them. Like, hey, Jim Comey, what did he do? 86-47. That's not acceptable to say that.
He's different, I think. I put him in a different category than Kimmel.
But the part where I'm going, and I understand what you're saying. I'm just telling you, there's a community
Jimmy
that's
Kimmel, we need him to go after the criminals, like Jimmy Kimmel. Criminal. Jiminy Criminal.
Pendejo.
Jiminy Criminal, a.k.a. Jimmy.
Pendejo.
They're saying, hey,
What?
we were getting
It's just
what do you
so
call it,
absurd.
strikes on YouTube for
Jiminy
just questioning
Criminal.
putting on a mask. That's all we
Okay.
did. There is a group of people
Who
that
are those people?
sitting there saying, hold them accountable because they freaking got you a mugshot. They try to bankrupt you. They try to destroy your life. You have the moral authority to go after them, and he's not aggressively going after anybody if you think about it. He
How did
himself-
this guy even? How did he even come about? I mean, I know what procreation is, so not that. But like, how did he even get to be famous? Is it just because he's rich? Oh yeah, okay, that's what it is. He's a capitalist, and he's like, I have something to say, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think it sounds right. And I make money, so people will listen.
He aggressively
That's
going
my
after
impression.
Not anybody.
I want to push back on that.
No, you
I know
don't.
a lot of Trump voters,
You're not
one
allowed.
in particular, who did not vote for Trump to go after his political enemies,
Nah,
but
you
to
shut up,
stop the
man.
lawfare.
You shut up. This guy needs to shut up. That's A. And B, he needs what PBD calls a hat timeout. If you see all those hats in the...
I was just about to say, what are all these hats? Again, I'm not a viewer of the PBD show or podcast or valuetainment, whatever the fuck is going on. Also, why is his tie so wide? What is happening?
background, if somebody starts doing / saying something PBDoo, if they start saying stuff that PBDoo doesn't like, they gotta take a time out and put one of those hats on and think about what they done.
$1.
And then they have to give him a
$1.
The
So there
dunce
we
cat.
go. PBDoo does a lot of this stuff.
They're
He's a
all
little
dunce
bit of a-
cats.
Pendejo.
There's more of that we're gonna
These
see.
are all
We'll get a
dunces.
little weaselly with the content, but I don't know. People were mean to the president or whatever the hell. People are kind of mean on these
Oh.
late night talk shows that nobody
That's
watches
not
anymore 'cause they're
allowed.
completely out of date.
You can't do
And this
that.
actually is probably the main source of publicity / attention, but I don't know. A lot of people are saying Jimmy Kimmel will go to jail. That probably would be great for Jimmy Kimmel's rating if he goes to jail. But that's PBD. That's what he believes. I don't know. A lot of people are talking. They think it would be fair that Jimmy Kimmel goes to solitary confinement. I don't know. A lot of people are talking, man. Jimmy Kimmel goes to Alcatraz, man. Oh, my man's been talking about this all week. Okay.
Mrs. Trump, you have
From
a
a different
glow like
show.
an expectant widow.
You have a glow like an expected widow?
Yeah.
So this is the part where I have a problem with things like this. So people came back and
This is the part where I have a problem with things like this. That is, if you're wondering, like, what's going on there? This is the part where I have a problem with things like this. That's sales. That's phone sales. I gotta fill a lot of time so the prospect gets more invested.
Yeah,
Look,
exactly.
this is what I gotta tell you about this. When we look
He gets
at
paid
this,
to talk out of his
I
ass.
gotta
to
look
go,
at this and I say, look at this. So I'm looking at this, and while I'm looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, I got a problem with things like this that are of like that.
So this is the part where I have a problem with
Not
things
the
like this.
pinnacle
So
of intellect.
People came back and they say, "Oh yeah, are you okay with the president saying, you know, an entire civilization, Iran?"
Which I believe this is also the joke that Erica Kirk had a crash out over with like her weird assassin outfit with her hat, her black hat says freedom, and her black shirt that's like buttoned up to here, which is very queer coded, I have to say. Doing the top button, weird choice for people who are very queerphobic, very lesbian coded. And so, does she have something to say? So many people in the right wing are closet cases. We already know this. And they're just grifters, and we know who they call on the weekends. Hi.
Well, that is the enemy he's calling out.
Why would you bring that up, dude? So Rob Dollar.
That's your name now, Rob Dollar.
This is what I have a problem when I'm looking at this, when I'm looking into this, when I'm perceiving this using the, what is it, like cones and rods inside of my eye? Rob's, maybe. I'm pissed off. I'm so worked up and pissed off about a guy who nobody watches doing your standard late night jokes. I guess I'm implying he should go to jail or something. I don't even know. And then people say to me, I guess he heard this. Maybe he saw this on Tucker Carlson or something. But then people say, Rob, they say, well, that guy you built a YouTube around, he's threatening, you know, millions of innocent civilians, you know, the worst kind of human atrocity. Why would you be focusing on a forgettable late night joke? And I look at this with the eye, with my iris and the surrounding area, the pupil, and it's coming through into the visual perception. It's like, why would you even bring that up?
I would never have picked up on it.
Oh, here's something that just totally...
The Erica Kirk thing. Sorry, I missed when you originally sent that. The visual, that visual. I will pull it up for you. Unless you mean something else, then stop me.
He takes what I'm saying and does this on it. But let me bring it up. Rob.
Pretty wild. But I want to get into one thing right off the bat.
Okay.
Oh my God. You were on a podcast, and my
No,
phone
he was
started
not.
blowing up. And I'm
That's
like,
a lie. He was not
why
on
is
a
everybody
podcast.
texting me this? Look what John said about you. I said, John is about to get on the podcast.
Oh,
So, Rob,
go to
if you have
jail.
the clip, I want to start off with this. I want to address it one by one by one. I want you to cover this for me. So
Calm
you're
down,
on a
man.
podcast. I don't know which
PBD,
podcast.
calm down.
Yes. This is it. This is the weird outfit. See, will it play the video? I was not expecting that to be the Drewski. Oh my God. And she also says in this monologue that she's like, people doing whiteface? It's like, okay. So this is Drewski actually pretending to be her. Let me pull up. Okay, let's look at this. You can see all my searches. Erica Kirk weird moments. This is what it is. Oh, come on. This is real, by the way.
Is anybody else worried? Let me go ahead and grab my Bible because something's off right now.
Yeah.
I'm feeling weird.
I rebuke you.
What is going on? She seems like she's unhinged, yo. I'm a little worried. I really am.
Yeah. It's demonic. Yes, this is something I was just about to say. She's more mad at Drewski than the killer of her husband. Exactly. where she's like, I forgive him. But then she's like screaming about Drewski doing whiteface, pretending to be her, when she deserves to be made fun of. Like, did you see the funeral that you planned for your husband with like thousands upon thousands of dollars of fireworks that you paid for, planned, and had lit when you stepped out to announce that you're the CEO? There is no shame. That's how I look at grocery prices. Yeah, call the exorcist. Exactly. She looks totally unhinged. Yeah, I mean, it's all extremely performative. I'm gonna need Drewski to remake this one. Exactly. Those eyes are straight out of one of those possession horror films. Yeah, so like, do you see like the top button, like all the way up there? That is so lesbian coded. But when has she ever dressed like this? Like, what is going on? Like, these people have so many like sycophants around them who just agree with whatever they do. No one was like, you look weird. You look weird, bitch. Like, maybe let's change. Someone was just like, yes, this looks great. Love it. Continue. Or maybe they're secretly against her and they were agreeing with her just to encourage the tomfoolery of it all. I encourage that. I like that. But this is where she is talking about that same joke of Jimmy Kimmel's, and also right after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where there was this person who didn't even fire shots, but people keep saying that he did. This person that ran in who said that he was going to possibly shoot people in the administration, but he did not actually. He just blew past security, which we found out the other day, that there's reporting that White House security, presidential security, was someone on this team, the Secret Service, recently was found masturbating in public. So these are the shining examples and heroic hearts and noble noble people who are on the front lines protecting the most important people in the world, the most powerful people in the world. Apparently she was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. There's a video of her like leaving and crying of like, this is so triggering. And people are like, triggering? Why do you look like an assassin? Because many people think that she was in on the assassination of her husband, and you know what? I haven't completely ruled that out either. So there we go. A bit of context. Also, what is he drinking? Look at this huge-ass drink that he has. Like lemonade?
You're gonna get it. Whoa!
Honestly, that looks kind of good.
I'm sensing a little attitude. PBD himself might have to get a hat timeout. Okay, Rob, I'm gonna need you to pick a hat. It's 15 minutes. 15-minute hat timeout. That's a $15 hat timeout. Okay.
But whatever it is, I was texted by everybody with this. So go ahead and play this clip.
I was watching Patrick Bet David yesterday, and Patrick
Who's that?
is a hardcore Zionist. He's Iranian.
okay.
I don't think
Let's hear
he's
it.
Jewish. I think he's like half Assyrian and
Hardcore
half
Zionist.
Armenian.
Yeah.
Hang on.
But
let's go
he's a
through it.
hardcore Zionist, and not just
Calm
a
down.
Zionist.
It was in the chat.
No, but
I was reading the chat.
Did any
Calm
of the
down.
influencers that you go and do interviews with, did anybody whisper to you off camera, hey, be careful with Patrick, he's a Zionist?
Yes.
Who was that?
Oh, I don't want to out him like that, but he said, "Oh, you're going on."
Okay, that's a hat timeout right there.
Oh my God.
I mean, that might be a 30-minute hat timeout. Okay.
On PBD, I said, yeah. He said, be careful. Patrick comes out swinging on Israel.
Is this a big name?
None of your
Yeah, it's a pretty
business.
big name.
One of the biggest names? So then I know who it is.
I don't want to
Okay.
out him.
Was his family in the CIA before, maybe?
He also is, he's more interested in his drink than he in his conversation. So, John Kirakou, is that how you say his last name? He was Kirakou? I should learn this. As someone with a last name that gets butchered a lot, but Kiriakou, that's what it is. He is an ex-CIA agent and was a whistleblower, and then he went to jail for a while, or went to prison rather, And he has since been more on the liberal side, talking about what's wrong with the government in this administration. But
I've got to stop.
Okay. All right.
But I want to
where did you
apologize
get
on
this
the record because I
earpiece?
was wrong.
Okay. So
Okay.
that and the
cleared up?
BB side.
Okay, hold on a sec, guys. I gotta check this out. Is this news? I gotta confirm whether or not this is news. 500,000 views. 500,000 views, 7 days. News confirmed. Play the news confirmed sound, please.
Cut your meat.
News confirmed.
News confirmed.
Who's this guy he's got on his show for 500,000
It's
views?
just like so
What the heck is that guy's
unserious.
name? John
Kiriakou, yeah.
Kiriakou. John Kiriakou. Oh! Let's check the comments here, right here, man. PBD's in a little bit of trouble with his audience, man.
Patrick
500,000
Bet
views,
starved.
7 days. He's out here chasing that
dollar.
What the hell does this say right here? PBD doesn't know what Zionist means, but got upset. Okay,
Yeah.
that seems pretty positive. Wait a second, that's negative. And I see some, what are those, periods at the end?
Oh no,
He uses that throughout his videos. That's negative. You can't say that. That's negative.
those are not periods. Those are laughing, crying faces.
Whoever wrote this is a message to whoever wrote, what am I trying to say? Whoever wrote this. Enjoy being a cellmate with Jimmy Kimmel. Enjoy wearing a timeout hat with Jimmy Toilets. Okay, so that commenter is being a real jerk, man.
That commenter's being a real jerk.
But in defense of PBDoo, he kind of doesn't really know what anything means, so lay off him. But this is kind of like a major problem. You know, I've been watching a bunch of PBD the past couple days. This is like a major problem for PB. Like, he is actually losing views, and I think this is one of the main problems here. He's in a tough spot, you know? Everybody's like, you're Zionist, man. He's probably losing a lot of his audience because of this. He had Netanyahu on, and he's really, like, trying to dance around this, you know? He's trying to dance away and around and under all over the place. You know, he got into this whole thing with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson probably damaged his following a little bit, a lot.
Here's Patrick Bet David.
Here's Patrick Bet David. Here's Patrick Bet David.
His audience does not like this. Even his audience, who skew a little on the... They do not like this, and he is in big trouble. And so it's kind of funny to see him, like, dancing around this.
Words have meaning. You're saying words have power. Words
No,
can
they
change
don't.
things.
That's
you know
a
what
lie.
bad words are now?
What?
Capitalism is a bad word.
The F
Trump is a bad word. Israel is a bad word. America has become a bad word.
Well,
Okay.
Patriotism is a bad word. But you know
where's
what
the
good words
why?
are? Communism.
But you know what good words are?
Poop.
And
Make pee-pee.
And Adam is so hated that he should just start doing stuff like that. Just be like, just come on this show and be like, I got a message for anybody who doesn't like me, which is everybody. This is my message to you. Tom is just like, ew, Adam. I have to sit next to this guy, Tom says.
Israel is a bad word. America has become a bad word.
well, it's not that it has become, it has been a bad word. Because guess what, bitch? The American flag, the American state, is bathed in blood, based off of genocide and ethnic cleansing and displacement and stolen land and the oppression of people, enslavement, just all sorts of unconscionable, immoral violence and policies that, like, how can you justify this? So things are being exposed even more now for what they are with this imperialist bullshit that has been going on for a very long time, since the inception of the nation state that we know as the United States of America.
This is very funny to watch. Like, PBD has come up with a little strategy. I mean, the whole show is just another, you know, scam or whatever, you know? People say that, not me. They say he's a scammy guy. He's an artist. The PBD show is art. Show it some respect. But they say, these bad guys say that this is just a scammy show run by a bunch of scammy guys, you know? But this is his little strategy here to deal with this thing that is absolutely, like, fracturing his audience, costing him views. You know, just let Adam talk about Israel. The most hated man on the internet, Adam. Just let him talk about it. He's already hated. And by the way, every time he talks about this, you could watch the live chat. They're just, shut up, Adam. Moron.
Moron.
And then Adam is like, I could see the chat. I have feelings. I'm a human being, and I could see what you're saying in the chat. And I do have a reply. Then they cut to Tom. Oh no, here we go. Here's my reply. Tom's like, Adam, that's unprofessional, man. Oh, okay. Now this is Adam.
It's just like,
oh, you're right, Tom. Sorry
so
about that.
unserious, like
Second, man. I just
immature,
wanna
but
tell you a
also
secret.
like these
Oh,
people
okay,
deserve
what
to
is
be
it, Adam?
trolled.
That's what's going on in this show, I believe.
But it is funny to watch.
And then also for these people, like, how do you even combat all of this nonsense of like, it's not that what I say is, you can't say when I am trying to say something serious. That's like, it just makes you look like an idiot.
You know? Like
More than
Tim
you
Pool is
already
having
do.
the same nonstop
You don't need
problem.
help.
And they want to keep as much of this audience around for it. But now it seems like it's kind of divided. You know, this kind of whatever Republican audience. Probably divided by young and old. And the older are like, Israel's awesome. And the younger are like, shut the hell up, Adam, you moron. You see this with Tim, my man Tim, all the time. I'll just stay out of this one. I don't know.
It's not none of my business.
But there is like a major problem with this.
Miriam Adelson, you want to come up here? Come up here, Miriam. Miriam gave my campaign indirectly and directly 250 million. She was number one.
No, she did not.
Give
That's
you
a lie.
250 million. I think that we should
I think
give
he
her
was
the
talking about Tim
opportunity
Pool.
to say hello.
Whatever the hell she
Tim.
wants.
And
Hey, hands
incredible
off,
woman
man.
With
So there you go. Very funny to watch.
Yeah, she says
You know,
that Trump is
PBD's
the
trying to
first
keep his
Jewish
audience on the
president.
hook, you know.
Like,
Trying to keep him on the hook, man.
You know, but it's all
You
falling
can't make
apart.
this
They're all
shit up.
divided. But PBD's still trying to do this. Hey, look, I built this channel around how much I love the president. He can do no wrong. He could do no wrong. In fact, if somebody makes a joke about him on a show that nobody watches, that guy should go to jail, probably, maybe. The president is the best. He can do no wrong. I don't know about all this Israel stuff, though. That's not my business. Right. Well, what else is there? What are his other causes? What are his other political activity? Not much, right?
Just so you know, I'm telling
Thank
you
you.
guys this.
Okay.
I can't tell you. Yesterday, I'm at a
Oh my
football
God.
game.
I showed this the other day, and I'm gonna have to bring it up again. It was in a different context, but this is from the Swan Princess. Whenever someone says, "What else is there?" it reminds me of this.
Arrange the marriage.
I loved this show growing up.
Wait.
I had a crush on her.
What?
And I was like, why is she with him? Why is she with a Squire haircut guy? I used to call this a Squire cut. I guess I still do. Before I learned that often people refer to this as like a page boy haircut or Lord Farquaad.
You're all I ever wanted. You're beautiful.
Thank you. But what else?
What else?
Is beauty all that matters to you?
Dad's like, how dare you be a person?
Eric? What else?
What else is there?
What else is there? Yeah, I love that. Mine was the dude chieftain in Mulan. Shang? Was it Shang in Mulan? Yeah, he was hot. He was very hot. I mean, in hindsight, there are many problematic things about Mulan, like with Orientalism and whatnot. But also growing up being Asian, Southeast Asian, as we both are, being like, oh, this is representation. Wow, thank you. I mean, he is hot. Let's be honest. I had a crush on both of them. I thought they were hot. I also, this should have been a sign to me. Like, the writing was on the wall with me being non-binary, gender expansive, of being like, wow, she's dressed up as a boy. Like, that's cool. Anyway, good choice. I love hearing about people's childhood crushes, especially their queer awakenings. Yeah, I think it was mostly cartoons, but then again, that was mostly what we were exposed to growing up.
And a lady
No, you
pulls up
weren't.
to me. She says, when are you guys going to get size 14? I'm like, ma'am, we just got size 7. We just got
Okay,
size 8.5.
still-
14 is coming here.
Okay, man. I've been hearing so much about these PBD shoes. I'll just suck it up and buy a pair. Hold on. Let me see, how much are they? $90? $50?
600?
Okay, I get it now. Gotta keep
Oh.
this audience together. Who else is gonna buy these $600 shoes, man?
He has an
This is pretty
earpiece
funny,
in
too.
both
Watch the cut
ears.
to his shoe ad. See if there's something funny you notice about this. Here we go.
And if you haven't yet gotten yourself an FLB shoe, watch this commercial. Hopefully this will persuade you to place an order for yourself, your husband, or your son. Go ahead, Rob. When we set out to create a shoe
Oh,
that
it's
blends
BB.
comfort, fun,
Hi, PBD here for PBD shoes. They're good. As an unbiased source of information on these shoes, they're good. You might be saying $600 for a stupid looking pair of shoes. That's crazy. It's not.
I can assure you it's not, man. You're being crazy. Shut the hell up, Adam.
Adam, hit him with it. Buy the shoes, man. What are you doing?
The key is
Oh,
every
it's
2 weeks.
Tommy.
That's my little baby boy, Tommy. Tom. That's my little baby boy, Tommy.
Tommy, he's got no idea what the hell he's doing or talking about. Okay.
The key is
Like all of them.
every 2 weeks we're hearing about Barry Weiss.
Also, he has the Mormon ski jump haircut. That's what I call it. That is like very similar to, the Hitler Youth, but like instead of it being just like shaved on the sides, it's like, oh, we're gonna do a ski jump. This means modern, but like 2000s modern. Massive profit from those shoes. Yeah, exactly.
This person leaves, or that person
grift
leaves. Barry Weiss
is
apparently is trying to
strong.
clean things up. At least that's
Tommy.
what we hear from the outside, right?
Absolutely,
the
Tommy.
producers are the ones. It's people like Keith Sharman and Julie Mortzgoff and Roxanne Feitel. Those are the producers at CBS, and the producer is in the earpiece asking her to say things. And those are the people to watch out for because they're driving the narrative. So I want to know who Forbes editors are. And guess what? To control a magazine, all you do is control the editors because the editors greenlight the stories. So,
Wow, Tom.
Greenlight the stories.
Good stuff,
all
Tommy,
you need
baby.
to do is have the guy that owns 51%.
That's my boy,
Pat.
Tommy,
All you
shut
need is
up.
4 editors.
He's a genius. That's Tommy. Okay, enough with that. That's my boy, Tommy.
Toilets.
Oh, man, there we go. That's some of the absurd open mic comedy of the great Tommy Baby. I call him Tom
dollar.
Sign. I mean, poor Tommy Baby. He is what many people call, and I don't like this. This is actually, I'm going to say right now to people in the chats and the super chats who are saying this, stop saying this. Stop saying this. Stop. They refer to Tommy Baby as a visibly insane person. Stop saying that.
No more of saying that.
But this segment is, I mean, it literally is like you need your head examined. I mean, just listen to what this segment is. You go, what is the video? Please go watch this. It's PBD number 785. The segment is Forbes shames Musk. Oh, that's Iluma. This is the segment that these guys do. We need to study them. What is the Sun in Fort Lauderdale doing to bake these guys' brains that they would upload this to 500,000 people in a day? In this segment, they look at an article on Forbes.
Is that where these people are located? Fort Lauderdale?
It's basically nothing.
That explains
I mean, it's
a
like
lot.
I was trying not to
Though I
fall
don't have room to
asleep
say
during the
anything
intro.
about location.
Oh, Elon Musk doesn't give any money
Beat
to
in
charity
Utah.
or something. And they're so pissed off. They're so pissed off that Forbes wrote this article and they're all not in jail. They're still walking free. They're so rattled by this that they're like, we got to be careful with the press. Who controls it? Ah! The whole segment is about, I mean, basically how scary it is that, you know, a small number of people can control what everybody sees, like Forbes. Which every morning I wake up, what does Forbes have to do and say? Forbes, a website that maybe, I don't know, what, 10, 15 people look at, they wrote a thing that's not just saying Elon Musk is the greatest man who's ever lived. They're not just writing that, so they're like, oh my God.
Oh my God, damn it.
We have to do a segment and go bet. For 10 minutes about how scary it is that the press can be controlled. They can control what you see. In this segment, in this bet, Tom references Barry Weiss and how awesome it is that she's trying to clean things up over there.
The key is every 2 weeks we're hearing about Barry Weiss, this person leaves or that person leaves. Barry Weiss apparently is trying to clean things up. At least,
right,
at least that's what we hear from the outside, right?
Right, Tommy baby. That's good, Tommy baby. In a segment about media control, Barry Weiss, who's now the employee of a billionaire who is trying to buy all the media. You say that in this segment. Oh, Tommy baby.
Tommy baby.
But that's not nice to call him visibly insane. Whether it's true or not, those people are those bad guys out there.
Those bad boys.
Those bad boys smoking cigarettes and typing that. Stop calling him visibly insane. He's doing his best, which is not very good, and in fact, very bad. I'll just do a more straightforward segment. You know, we could
Bad
save
boys
10 minutes.
smoking
We could actually, PBD could shut down his channel, because this is basically the whole show, is that anything that's critical of billionaires should be illegal. That's it. That's it.
I'm PBD with a very popular message to you morons out there.
Adam, go ahead. Close out the show. Also, buy my $600 shoes, you morons.
Believe it or not, I looked it up. They say 4 editors and the editor-in-chief and 3 editors can control the entire narrative of the magazine or
Imagine that.
of the channel. That's
Imagine
all we
that,
need.
Tommy, baby.
And this is who is doing it. To me, this is horrifying. And by the way,
calm down,
if you're
Tom.
asking me also what I feel about philanthropy.
There we go. A great job from my man, PBDoo.
Oh my God.
Congratulations to all of them. Congratulations to Adam for being the most disliked, charmless man in the world. Oh my God, before we get out of here, guys, we got a new... Literally just forgot what I was talking about. Tom style. We got 2 new segments. What the hell are these?
Tom style.
Oh, new segment number 1, Ion
Hassan Parker.
Ion Hassan Parker. What is the guy's name? Ion Hassan Parker. Okay, let's check out what the hell is going on in Hassan Parker news and related activity.
Hassan Parker. Paul Davidson.
What is this right here? Okay, this is the big Hassan Parker news. Amid all the other chaos, Congress focuses on a Hassan Parker bill. A Democrat and Republican representative have decided this is appropriate use of taxpayer resources in this current moment. Okay, so interesting stuff, man. What's the story here? What would be the story here? How do we describe this story? There's some blank-faced morons who are somehow involved in the government are doing a bill to say Hassan Parker is bad. Okay, well, good luck to them on their, I don't know, Twitch channels that they're starting. And they don't want competition or something. Whatever.
Thank you.
Whatever the hell they're doing.
Hi.
To those blank-faced dolts in the government, we say... Okay, I'm getting word that the new segment number 2 is... What is the dumb thing? What is this ridiculous thing called? Youth Focus. The segment is called Youth Focus.
Youth Focus. Youth Focus. People who are
The font.
young and not on fossils.
Okay, guys, this is a huge deal. Please show it some respect.
Please show it some respect.
For this Youth Focus segment, we have a real little kid. What's the kid's name? What is this stupid kid's name? Little Greg.
Hey everybody, it's me, a new character, Little Greg. Hold on, my mouth isn't matching what I'm saying. It's me, Little Greg. I brought a gift for all of you and the host. Here it is.
Jesus, man, this kid's already out of control. Okay, get your hand out of your mouth, Little Greg. Okay, so let's keep this brief, little Greg. This is a big problem with you guys, is this kind of deep. You post things that you guys think are deep. Let's take a look at one of these little kid posts. Okay, let's look at this deep post here. This is deep. So it's got a guy who fell off a motorcycle. What the hell is this? In 1980, people would run over, and then 2010, they were less inclined to do so. And then, I don't know, he's just taking a picture of himself in 2025. Can you explain why this is deep? What's deep?
I get the point. It's not completely off base, but so dramatic.
What is my hand doing? So this is deep because in 1980, if you fell off a motorcycle, people would come to help.
People would come to help.
People would come to help. In 2010, as you can see from the photograph, less so. Less so.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2025, at that point, then you're just taking a picture. So it's pretty serious stuff. Goodbye, little Greg, out of here.
Well, there we go, guys. A hilarious new bit there. Little Greg.
Little Greg.
With Youth Focus.
Well, guys, have a good weekend.
Don't forget to check the merch store. Link in description. It's at videosaren'treal.com. Check that out. I've got stuff in there. All right, guys. Talk to you next time. Love you. Bye-bye.
What an amazing new character. He looked like he was having trouble controlling his body and mouth. He looked like he cost about $60, little Greg. But anyway, guys, I do have something important to talk about, which is your missing episodes. You are missing episodes every single week of this show.
This is
but
still
better,
him
but way better.
talking.
And way more amazing stuff. And all you gotta do to get all that missing stuff is subscribe on Patreon. Subscribe on Patreon. Click the link below this video.
All right. So, you see, very, very much nonsense. A lot of fart jokes, but I will be the first to admit I'm not above a fart joke. Clearly. Peanut butter David time. Peanut butter David time. Peanut butter Davis time. This needs more views so it can be considered news. Exactly. Love him or hate him, people like him. This is the part where I have a problem with things like this. I probably unknowingly say shit like this all the time. Okay, so I did want to, just so we have a bit of a break from the PBD of it all, let's get into some headlines, and then we'll continue talking about this AI center.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the
Thank you,
War and
Amy
Peace
Goodman.
Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump said Monday the U.S. ceasefire with Iran is on life support after he rejected Iran's proposal to end the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, calling it stupid.
After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. They said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support.
Iranian officials said they're prepared to retaliate if attacked, warning the U.S. would be surprised by Iran's response.
Because of which
Meanwhile,
party,
the Wall
bitch?
Street Journal reports the
This
United
is
Arab
all
Emirates
your fault.
secretly carried out military strikes on Iran, including an April attack on a refinery on Lavan Island in the Persian Gulf. The Journal reports the Trump administration quietly welcomed the participation of the UAE and any other Gulf states wanting to join in the fight. The head of the Saudi Aramco oil company warned Monday the global oil market will lose around 100 million barrels every week if disruptions to the Strait of Hormuz continue at the current rate. Amin Nasser also warned that global supplies of gasoline and jet fuel could reach critically low levels by summer unless Iran allows shipping lanes to reopen. Here in the United States, Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley said Monday he's introducing legislation that would suspend federal taxes on gasoline and diesel fuel. Gas is currently taxed at 18.4 cents per gallon, diesel at just over 24 cents. Hawley's bill would suspend them entirely for 90 days, depriving the Treasury of billions of dollars of tax revenue. This comes after the Trump administration released a record 8.6 million barrels of oil from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve last week in a bid to lower U.S. gas prices, which have soared to an average of more than $4.50 a gallon. The Israeli military has issued a new forced evacuation orders for residents of southern Lebanese towns and villages as it continues daily violations of the U.S.-brokered April ceasefire. On Monday, an Israeli airstrike killed 6 people in a house in southern Lebanon. Elsewhere, Israeli forces blew up a water pumping station on the Litani River. Meanwhile, the UN says Israeli forces are impeding peacekeepers with UNIFIL, blocking their movements with tanks and armored bulldozers. UN spokesperson Farhan Haq said violent incidents have surged since Friday.
During this period, peacekeepers observed more than 1,296 trajectories of projectiles attributed to the Israeli Defense Forces, and 64 trajectories of projectiles attributed to Hezbollah. Incidents involving the denial of freedom of movement to UNIFIL peacekeepers continue to occur daily.
In Gaza, Israeli forces have once again violated the U.S.-brokered ceasefire with deadly violence. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports Israeli troops stationed in eastern Gaza shot and killed 2 civilians Monday. Elsewhere, medics retrieved the bodies of 2 Palestinians from central Gaza after they were hit by shrapnel from Israeli artillery fire. Meanwhile, a member of a Gaza-bound humanitarian aid flotilla has returned home after he was abducted by Israeli commandos in international waters and brought to Israel for interrogation. The Brazilian activist Tiago Avila said from Sao Paulo on Monday he and other prisoners suffered torture in Israeli custody. Avila blamed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the abuses. Thanks.
Yes, he committed another war crime, but what he did against us is nothing compared to what they do to Palestinians every single day. Once again, we always need to say this. It's not about us individually. It's about a people that has been suffering 8 decades of genocide and ethnic cleansing.
Tiago Avila's mother died in Brazil while he was in Israeli custody. After headlines, we'll speak with Saif Abu Keshek. He was abducted from the global Samud flotilla by Israeli forces. He'll speak to us now after being held for 10 days by Israel. He'll speak to us from Turkey. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces fatally shot a 30-year-old Palestinian man Monday as they raided the Kalangia refugee camp north of Jerusalem. He was shot in the head, later pronounced dead after Israeli forces barred ambulance crews from reaching his body. The killing came as Israeli forces stormed a vocational school opposite the camp and fired a barrage of tear gas, stun grenades, and live ammunition. Separately, a Palestinian family in a village near Jenin says Israeli settlers forced them to exhume their 80-year-old relative and rebury his body in a different grave. 80-year-old Hussein Assasa died of natural causes last Friday. His son says he coordinated a burial with Israel's military, yet settlers threatened to bulldoze his gravesite unless he agreed to move the body, claiming the cemetery was part of an Israeli settlement. Such settlements are illegal under international law. The European Union has agreed to impose sanctions on Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank after Hungary's new government lifted its long-standing veto of the measures. The move comes shortly after Péter Magyar was sworn in as Hungary's new prime minister, ending 16 years of Viktor Orban's authoritarian rule. Viktor Orban was a close ally of the United States as President Trump. 10 Hamas leaders were also sanctioned. The EU and the United Kingdom also announced separate sanctions targeting Russian officials and institutions accused of systematically deporting and indoctrinating Ukrainian children during the war. The sanctions cover Russian individuals responsible for...
Yeah, they have these brainwashing camps, these re-education camps that Russia sending Ukrainian children to, so they're having to deprogram them when they actually are rescuing these children. But she mentioned, Amy Goodman, that Orban is a friend of Trump, and that's true, but also of Netanyahu, clearly. Like, duh.
Or forcibly transferring children from occupied Ukrainian territories. Here in New York, protests erupted Monday outside a real estate expo that advertises properties for sale in the occupied Palestinian territories. The Intercept reports at least one table at the so-called Great Israeli Real Estate Event, unquote, advertised land sales in Kfar Eldad, Karni Shamran, and other Israeli settlements considered illegal under international law. This is Shraddha Joshi of the Palestinian Solidarity Group, Pal-Auda.
In the buildings near us, they are selling Palestinian land illegally in an event that is in direct violation of New York housing law, New York real estate law, and international law. This is Palestinian land that is being sold right here in our neighborhoods. The properties that are being advertised in this land sale event exist in the occupied West Bank. That is direct violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which is in violation of international law. And we're here to say that we have a stake in this as community members, and that New Yorkers will be out here and we will not be silenced.
The U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way Monday for Alabama to eliminate one of its two majority black congressional districts ahead of November's midterm elections. The move could hand Republicans an additional House seat. Alabama is one of several Republican-led states rushing to redraw maps and disenfranchise black voters after the Supreme Court gutted a key Voting Rights Act provision last month. Meanwhile, Virginia Democrats on Monday asked the U.S. Supreme Court,
just paving the way for this second round of Jim Crow. That's what this is.
To restore a voter-approved congressional map struck down by Virginia's High Court last week. The new Virginia districts could help Democrats secure up to 4 seats in the House. President Trump set to arrive in China to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping this week for his first visit to China since 2017. President Trump will be accompanied by corporate executives, including Apple CEO Tim Cook and Elon Musk of Tesla. Forbes reports the 5 billionaires in President Trump's entourage have a combined...
That should tell you everything we need to know about these companies, if you didn't already. Especially when it comes to Apple, that often flies under the radar with many people because of the Apple loyalty and propaganda that we have become ever dependent once you have engaged in buying some of their products, that they are one of the biggest leaders in funding the genocide happening in Sudan because of, not Sudan, in the Congo, and the enslavement of children where they are working in these mines. And it is just unconscionable. It's immoral, clearly, but the working conditions are horrible. The way that they have no human rights, it has to be stopped. And in order to put pressure on these people, we have to quit making a market for these products, a demand for them.
Net worth of $870 billion. The summit is expected to focus on trade tariffs, the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran, artificial intelligence, and U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. Senate Democrats have condemned a Republican plan to spend $1 billion in taxpayer funds on Trump's ballroom in the East Wing of the White House. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer accused Republicans of, quote, asking working families to pay the price while Trump pockets the perks.
At a time when Americans are struggling to put food on the table, Republicans say, let them eat cake, and demand American taxpayers build Trump a palace while they're at it.
This comes as soil excavated
such rousing
from the
words
White
from a
House as part of
leader.
the Ballroom Project.
That's sarcasm,
and
by the way.
dumped at nearby East Potomac
He's
Park
not wrong, but
has tested positive for lead.
He also is part of the problem. Chuck.
Chromium and other toxic metals, according to National Park Service data reported by the New York Times. And a lawsuit filed by the Cultural Landscape Foundation seeks to halt Trump's makeover of the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool, whose repairs have ballooned from a promised $1.8 million to $13.1 million after the Interior Department added $6.2 million to a no-bid contract last week. Meanwhile, in Miami, Florida, a 15-foot gold-leaf
no bid
bronze
contract.
statue of
Going to
President
their
Trump,
friends.
dubbed Don Colossus, was installed at Trump's Doral, Miami golf course, commissioned by a cryptocurrency group and dedicated by Trump ally Pastor Mark Burns. On social media, Pastor Burns wrote, quote, "Let
You have
me
such
say this
horrible
plainly.
taste."
This is not a golden calf," unquote.
If you have to say that,
Haiti's prime minister
you
said
should
Monday,
maybe
Haiti is
question
too
things.
unstable to hold presidential elections as scheduled in August, which would be Haiti's first election in nearly a decade. Haiti has had no nationally elected officials since January 2023, and its parliament has been inactive since 2019. More than 1.4 million people have been displaced by gang violence, while key roads linking the capital, Port-au-Prince, to the provinces remain unsafe or blocked. Doctors Without Borders has suspended hospital operations due to gunfire safety concerns. And in the Philippines, a senator who once presided over former President Rodrigo Duterte's violent drug war fled federal agents Monday as they attempted to serve him an international arrest warrant outside the Philippine Senate. Surveillance cameras caught the dramatic scene as 64-year-old Senator Ronald De La Rosa dashed upstairs and raced along hallways before arriving at the Senate chamber, where the officers have no power to arrest him. He slept at the Senate office overnight and has since refused to leave, vowing to fight extradition to The Hague to face charges at the International Criminal Court. De La Rosa served as police chief under Duterte between 2016 and 2018, when thousands of alleged drug dealers were shot and killed. A spokesperson for the ICC laid out the charges against him Monday.
The judges assessed the material submitted by the prosecution and found reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. De La Rosa is allegedly criminally responsible as an indirect co-perpetrator for the crime against humanity of murder.
Meanwhile, the Philippine House of Representatives voted Monday to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte over bribery and corruption charges. She's the daughter of the ex-president Rodrigo Duterte, who's jailed at The Hague awaiting trial at the ICC for alleged crimes against humanity. It's the second time Sara Duterte has been impeached, but she appears unlikely to be removed from office after her allies on Monday took control of the Senate. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to Democracy.
All right, let's keep moving along. So, going to the AI data center that is being built in Utah, and now we know that there are 2 other ones that are being built that they are not being open or transparent about. Surprise, surprise, because this is what they have been doing, following a pattern. Just to get through this quickly. This is the first time I'm actually like trying to watch something of PBD's valuetainment.
Next story I want to get to is a data center, 62 square mile data center.
The reason I'm even playing this, indulging to begin with, is that I'm surprised that there are people on the right that are covering this, but it is becoming undeniable. So we'll see how they defend it, or if they have issues with it. It will probably be them defending it, let's be honest.
It's being built in Utah. People are not happy about it. Kevin O'Leary was there, but while this is happening, just to give you some fun facts on how big 63 square miles, it's 3 Manhattans. Manhattan is 23 square miles. And at the
Kevin O'Leary, the billionaire who's on Shark Tank, who is the one who is funding this, the owner, he was not there. He was not in Utah. I doubt he's ever been to Utah.
same time while this is taking place. You have to hear what the sound's like. I don't want to give you a sound yet. Let's first go to this, Rob. Is this the town hall?
Yep, they get right into it.
Okay, go for it.
Concern and outrage in Utah,
For hell's sakes, grow up.
where hundreds of protesters this week flooded this meeting of Box Elder County Commissioners
Can you be quiet and let our citizens hear what needs to be said, please?
as they voted to move forward with a controversial
Where's
data
the
center
research? The
proposal
Holy Land is
backed by
everywhere.
celebrity Canadian businessman Kevin O'Leary. Hello, Sharks. Known as Mr. Wonderful on the hit show Shark Tank.
We should do this deal. You have no risk. Just say yes.
O'Leary firing back at the protests and criticism in this video posted on social media after the vote.
I'm pretty aware of what these concerns are. They are around air, water use, heat. Sustainability is at the heart of what we do in terms of all these proposals. We don't, not just Utah.
The Stratus Project is a plan to build a 40,000-acre development near Utah's Great Salt Lake,
Then
boosted
make
by
it by
government
your
tax incentives,
home.
and according to a county fact
Why
sheet,
aren't
is
you?
eventually expected to generate and consume up to 9 gigawatts of power once completed, a number MITA, the state.
But again, it is going to be closer to 16 to 17 gigawatts of power with all of the cooling and their own energy generation that they're trying to say like, oh, we're taking care of it to offset it. No, it's going to be using up even more power.
Entity backing the project says is more than double Utah's average energy consumption.
So that's the concern.
Data centers of the old have a bad reputation. They gobble up a lot of water, they use up your power, and then when they're all built, they don't employ many people. This is not that. Power usage is completely self-contained.
The project's potential environmental impact sparking much of the outrage.
We're losing land, we're losing water, and we're losing air quality.
This has the footprint.
Can pause it right there, Rob. Can you show the audio? This is actually a very good video. Can you show the audio of what it sounds like, what these things sound like? Is this going to be the same exact one, Rob, or which data center is this that's making this sound? Do we know?
I'll find out what data center this is.
Yeah, let's find out which data center that's from. Go ahead, Rob. Sounds like a plane taking off.
The C5.
Yeah. Is that really what it sounds like?
It's outside.
Go in the comment section. I'm just curious to know where this is. Texas and Virginia, what does it say? Texas and Virginia are currently leading the way with data centers. Go a little bit lower to see what the audience is saying. Go a little bit lower. I'm just wondering if other people are saying this is what it sounds like.
That one pass in Vineland, New Jersey.
I had a data center that size as a client. It sounded nothing like this. In fact, it didn't sound like anything. What is making that noise? Jet engines, that's exactly what I said, because I don't think that's what it sounds like. At President, instead of relinquishing data to China, we should solve this self-inflicted. Go a little bit lower. Let's see what she says. They use different forms of electric power. Some are even using gas turbines. Don't argue with body counts. Go a little bit lower. What is the point of this? Keep going a little bit lower. Can we find out where that is, Rob?
I looked it up, Pat, and it says the data center in this video is Vineland, New Jersey, Cumberland County, South Jersey, large Microsoft-backed AI data center facility.
And is the sound coming from that? Can we find out if Grok or somebody can verify where that sound is coming from?
And I asked Pat, is this what they sound like? She said, yes, that's exactly what large AI data centers sound like, especially when they're running heavy cooling systems or backup on site power generation. The whirring humming in New Jersey is similar, massive arrays of cooling fans, air handling units, and cooling towers. Noise characteristics at a distance, half a mile, like many Vineland homes.
Meet your neighbor, giant
This is
data center.
already
This is
so
what I want to see. If this is
insufferable,
real,
I have to say.
I mean, what are we talking about if this is real? Play this, Rob.
That's loud, Ashad.
That is loud.
So they're mostly concerned about the sound, not the energy it's taking up, destroying the environment, the water that it takes up.
Nowadays, I mean, you have to. Who, by the way, can you do me a favor? In the comment section, who lives by an AI data center, and how bad is it? You know, if you're actually right next to it right now, post a video right now with a link, send it to us on X. A bunch of you guys are tweeting at me, at Patrick David. Post it on X and say, this is what it sounds like right now if you're close to a data center.
Notice that there are none anywhere near Martha's Vineyard or anywhere near the elites.
Earning a bad name, and then
propose a
there's so
data
much that we
center
could be
in Palm
doing
Beach and
better
watch
about it.
these
For
guys
instance,
change their tune real
water
quick.
usage. That's the one I look at because
Who
I
the
think
fuck
some of
would
these
wanna
data
live
centers make
next to
this
that?
noise.
I don't blame them.
But I think other
Yeah.
data centers are
They
quiet.
don't care about
unless
anything or
they turn
anyone.
on
Evil.
the backup power. And the backup power are these enormous diesel
Yeah,
engines.
if you would
you've
like
ever
when
heard a
you're at
hospital
home.
you hear a little siren, and then the hospital does
Adam says just
a power
live with
outage
the
test,
noise,
and you hear
what a
them fire up the
loser.
big generators are outside.
Another
It's
way
loud, but
how
that's the
AI
backup.
is
I want
destroying
to know is
us.
what is the sound actually coming from the data
Yep.
center, and how are they creating the power for the data center, and what are they doing about water? I thought it was very, very funny. A data center in Atlanta, Pat, you'll love this. They sucked up 30 million gallons of water until there was outrage because people were calling City Hall. You know what they were asking? I'm trying to take a shower and the water pressure's down. And so they go, let's figure it out. So the city literally sent out people to go look at it. It was Annalise Park in Fayetteville, Georgia, about 20 miles south of Atlanta. Then you're gonna love this.
Capitalism.
They found out that one water connection had been installed without the city utilities' knowledge.
Okay. So I don't think I can finish this. Tommy as that video is saying Tommy baby. Ugh. Yeah, they cut corners. They're making everyone's bills go up. Like, what was this? The amount of energy used by the entire state of Oregon is up 33% because of data centers. Idaho is 40%. The entire conversation is about what we need to figure out. Too late. Yeah. Yeah, like, what do we need to do? We just need to stop. We need to stop them. And we have to stop them where it hurts, which is capital.
And the other was not linked to the company's account. Therefore, they weren't being billed for the water. Right. Now, they cleaned everything up, and they found out that the people that built it were trying to get it done, and they did some things they shouldn't have done. And so Quality Technology Services paid back Atlanta $150,000 for the water, and they got it all back together. But the point is, the usage of water, I think, is bigger because power, if they'll just force them to make, and this is what I keep saying, Mr. President, get the nuclear power permits out so they could put a Gen 5 small reactor at the data center to provide power for the data center. And then if you have a local problem like tornadoes or power grid goes down in some areas, you reduce.
Okay. These people don't know what's going on. All right. So that's what's happening. There is an event happening on Thursday. That's a press conference on the south steps of the Utah Capitol. If you're in Utah, that you can attend. There will be press coverage. It's happening at 10:30, so you can watch, be there if you're able to, and there are a number of protests coming up that are happening as well that I will keep you updated on. Okay, I guess I should introduce this. So this is from a few years ago, 5 years ago. How to organize your workplace with Bianca. New York City DSA, organize, strike, repeat. So as we're talking about striking, having a statewide strike, a national strike, world strike, I mean, I'm talking about this a lot. Talking about the specifics of organizing workplace is very important. So we'll go through this and then, oh, this is long. We'll probably start on this and watch the rest of it tomorrow, just to talk about how we can affect some of these global supply chains.
In this episode, we interview Bianca, founder of the Afro-Socialists and Socialists of Color Caucus and member of NYC DSA. She talks to us about workplace organizing and building solidarity with coalition partners.
So I'm just gonna start by just asking you to say more about yourself and how you got involved in labor organizing.
Sure. So how I first got involved in labor organizing, for my very first job out of college, I went to go stay with my parents for a little bit to figure it out. And at the time, my dad was enlisted in the Air Force, and they were stationed in Little Rock Air Force Base. And so I picked up my stuff, went to Little Rock, and got a job at a Verizon call center. At the time, it was the highest paying job in the city of Little Rock. I really enjoyed my job, etc. And I felt like I was fairly compensated for the work I was doing. I was getting promotions fairly quickly. It seemed like there was upward mobility in the company. And at that time I wanted to be, I thought I wanted to work for a corporation and climb up the ladder. There was a point where my parents were retiring from the military and they were gonna go back to the East Coast, where I'm originally from. And so I had asked for a transfer, but they didn't have a call center. And so they transferred me into a retail store in Staten Island. I was living in Brooklyn, working in Staten Island. My commute was 2.5 hours. I went through this and was asking for a transfer to Brooklyn because there were stores in Brooklyn for me to go to for probably about a year. And so by the time, it took me about a year of fighting. And by the time I got to Brooklyn, I kind of had, I was kind of super alert and kind of rattled a little bit for how hard I had to fight. And so, I worked in Brooklyn for a while. I was there for maybe about a year. And in that year, I experienced all kinds of things. I came into a store that had a really toxic culture, passed down from management. It was super competitive. And the management was abusive. So when I say abusive, what do I mean? I mean, at the time, we were just carrying the iPhone. It was when Verizon first had the iPhone, for instance, is one example. Verizon was really upset with us that we weren't selling the Android phones because customers just wanted the iPhone. And so they would discipline us if we would sell anything other than an Android phone, tell us that they were gonna take away our benefits, sit us down on one-on-ones and talk to us about how to talk customers out of the phone that they want into the phone. And so it's years after just having somebody be a hawk and watch down on you, we started to call HR. We would all simultaneously take different turns calling HR on different days of the week in our store because we were all if they knew about this, this is not okay. This can't be coming from upper management or whatever. Then we learned that they didn't care. And in fact, they backed up the managers in the abuse. People would regularly pass out on the floor from anxiety attacks. People
Bosses doing boss shit.
I mean, people were just taking time off because they were just unwell mentally because of the culture in the store. And the breaking point came for us whenever we got one of the managers that we didn't really like, that was really abusive, out, and they replaced her with someone else who we thought was like fine, until he started sexually harassing all the women in the store. And then we were like, kind of like, enough is enough. And so after that experience, I feel like we were really rattled. HR did fire him, but by that time we had been abused verbally, sexually assaulted, or not assaulted, but sexually, harassed. And just like, we were just totally beat. I have to say that the 6 months before we organized the union, I was actually off myself on like mental FMLA, trying to get my mental together. I've never felt anything like that before. So when I came back, after 6 months, I came back into a different store, but I knew all the people, and it was a new manager, and it was a nice manager, and he was great. And then it came time for our annual raises, and I remember I had been at this point probably about 5 years with Verizon in its totality. And I remember him saying, well, you're not getting a raise. You had to take an FMLA leave. And sorry, I have the budget to give you a 3% raise, but I'm only going to give you 1% because that's what I can do. And something in me just snapped. And I remember I was sitting at the counter in that same time frame, sitting at the counter, and we're in Brooklyn, and so we're in a part of Brooklyn that's like old school Brooklyn, very blue collar. You see, because we work in a Verizon store and the landline is union, oftentimes you see the union guys coming in and out, et cetera. We service their accounts. So we saw a guy, big union guy in a jacket. He says, he comes in, I have a problem with my phone, blah, blah, blah. So my coworker's helping him, and I said, hey, you're part of the union, aren't you? I see your jacket. And he said, yeah. So I said, well, when are you guys gonna come over here? Because, we'd like to have a union, and I don't know what to do. And he was like, I'm not supposed to be talking about the union to you per our contract, but your local is 1109. You should Google it. Turn around, fix this phone, whatever. And I went and Googled it. And the next day I reached out to them and I left a message. They sent an organizer a week later that met me in the subway across the street from my store on my lunch break. And the rest was kind of just history. We went on to build a union campaign. It was really a long fought battle. But yeah, those are the conditions that pushed me into wanting to start a union in the first place.
Can you talk a little bit more about that first one-on-one with the organizer? Like, what stood out to you in that moment?
He really asked me to lay out why I called him. And I had already been thinking about it, so we were kind of on the same page. I had already said that, I think I have people that are interested in this. For instance, I had already reached out to one of the people I know in each store, one person I know in each store, to say, I didn't say I'm calling a union organizer. I said, if you want to learn more about changes that we can have, we can make in the company, then let me know. And so I built it from there. And so he just drew all that information out of me. And he talked a lot about his personal experience and how he's dedicated and why he's dedicated to the work. So yeah, he talked about his time. For instance, he was organizing, one of the organizers with Occupy, that participated in Occupy. So he connected the struggles that we're seeing in our stores, the struggles that we're having with our management and with the company, with our, unhappy about the things that we're unhappy about, with the reason that people occupied the park. And it was at this time only 2 years after Occupy Wall Street. And so that to me really resonated. He was able to tell a personal story. And I remember it really making an impression on me, because whenever I went back to report back to my coworkers about what I talked about with him, they said, how is he? And I said, yo, he seems like the real deal. He slept in the park and Occupy. He's really gonna be on our side, because he was able to share that personal information. Super down to earth. Didn't make me feel bad about not knowing anything, and just really met me where I was in the moment. So those are the things that stood out to me, and always consistent, always following up, even more than I probably would have liked. But yeah.
So how did you so from there, after basically being trained or getting this knowledge and getting this experience, from there you organized a bunch of stores from what I can tell. Am I correct in thinking you organized 7 of Verizon stores? And so how did you become the organizer extraordinaire? Because that seems like most people, if they organize one store, they're like, oh, this is great, but 7 is a lot. How was that?
This is actually not anything special about me. This is actually, sometimes we say the managers are our best organizers, and this is what we mean by this. So what would happen whenever all that terrible behavior that I referred to earlier in the call, when that would happen and people would complain to HR or complain to the district manager, their fix was always to switch you to a different store. And so because this behavior was so rampant across all of Brooklyn, it means that all of us have worked in several different stores. And so there's a a really like high amount of interchange, which means we all know each other, right? Because we've all been switched in and out. They switch managers. You know, like, oh, this manager's, you know, doing this abuse. Okay, we'll just switch them to another store. And so we had all had shared experiences around bad managers, around working conditions. So because of this interchange, we already had relationships in every store. And so when I went to go meet the union organizer, I already went and I said, I have 6 other people besides myself that are interested in doing this. And so we actually started the committee with people from all those different stores. And it was never a separate thing. I will say though, that once
Which
we
is very
started
cool.
our,
and honestly, pretty rare a lot
organize
of the time
and once we won our election 3 months later,
to start out
they
with it being
did
that
in
widespread.
Massachusetts, they read about our victory in the union and the fact that we had organized because, and somehow somebody had read it. And so then they decided to have their own organizing drive in their store in Massachusetts. And then as a result, ended up getting in contact with us and we fought, embark on our contracts and went on strike side by side. So there was a lot of coordination between different stores. For instance, even during our election in Brooklyn or during our campaign in Brooklyn, the union put us in touch with people who had tried to do it in California and failed, and tried to do it in Illinois and failed. Although they didn't win a union, they still had experience about how the company would react. That was really valuable for us. So it was really like a network of workers who were just kind of supporting each other through this, and a case of good timing.
Oh, that's cool.
Definitely. Can you tell us a little bit more about getting that organizing committee set up with all of y'all? Like, what did that process look like, and yeah, any kind of advice?
So what we would do, so like the way that union organizing was back then, it's a little different than now. Like back then, I come with the 6 names, or the 6 names besides myself. I go report my meeting back to them with the first union organizer. He then says, in a week, let's pick a meeting spot and you bring those people that you feel like, you know, you talk to that are interested in this with me. We have a meeting the next week. The second meeting is instead of 1 person, is in 7 people, right? The union organizer then says the exact same thing to them that he says to me, and does the same exact process with them. He says, we're gonna have a meeting in a week. And then so on, every time it doubles. The way that we grow is that we talk to people, we have every single meeting, we would sit down and have an assessment. Who is in each store? Who do we think are 1s? Who do we think are 2s? Who do we think are 3s? 1s being, we know they're going to be down for the cause. We know they're going to support the union. 2s being, we have no idea about this person. They could go.
This is called list work in the process of unionizing, where you place people into these numerical categories based on their openness to unionizing, and it helps to make sure that you are doing things in an organized fashion, but also that you are not actively engaging with people who will take down the cause.
Either way, or we just don't know them at all. And 3s being, we know those are like super people close to the management, and you know, those aren't the people that we need to tell about what we're doing in this moment or ever. And so when you're doing those assessments, you know, once a week, and your group is getting larger just by doing those assessments, because the ones that we come up with, then we're tasked on inviting them to the next meeting. The 2s that we come up with, then we're tasked on holding out, but trying to figure out an angle to start a conversation to see if they can be 1s or if they will be 3s. And so we did that for the better part of a month, I would say, that we were just meeting weekly. We're coming to these meetings, we're building momentum. What happens is you build momentum for about a month, like I said, until our very last meeting. I think, you know, that's whenever you've called everybody in, you're like, that you think is on your team, and you're like, we've written, you know, our statement about why we want to unionize in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the sanitation workers in Memphis. You know, we are going to have a voice and build power and, you know, all these things. And then you commit. And so you commit and you say, okay, we're going to file for an election at the National Labor Relations Board. What that means is that all of you have signed these cards to say that you want to file for a union. It's going to be public information, and it's going to be like who signed on to this, and it's going to be out and the management will know. So
it's also referred to as going public.
Every single meeting, when you invite new people, you hear the exact same
the
speech.
bosses
you call
can
it
see
inoculation.
that that's what you're
doing.
doing.
Give you like a little taste of how the management may react. Or what's going to happen. You're outlining what the steps are. When you do this, the manager will react like this. When you do that, the manager will say that. This is the playbook. You know, most people don't know management and companies, whether they're, you know, tech companies or they're, you know, fast food restaurants, they all use the same anti-union playbook. They have lawyers that come up with the same exact steps. There's no special thing for a special profession, and because it works. But we have the playbook and we know, right? But we're trying to inoculate people and prepare them for what will happen, because people feel so much more in control and empowered when you hit them when they expect it, right? Versus whenever you hit them and they didn't expect it.
I think related to that intimidation factor. So a lot of people are, you know, the reason why they're not even willing to consider unionizing is because of the fear of what can happen in many cases, fear of what in fact does happen in many cases, whether it's getting fired or just being harassed at your job, or your boss making your life just hell for the time you're employed. So could you say something about like, how did you deal with that? How did you and your organized committee like deal with both the fear and the real threats of, they can actually do things to make your life hard as a worker?
Yeah, so yeah, we talked about countering what fear is. Fear is a lack of information. Fear is the tool that the boss uses to justify its treatment of workers. And so like we try to turn the fear into like anger, for instance, to say, listen, you're afraid, but what do you have to lose? Already, people are passing out from anxiety attacks. Already, you're getting horrible schedules. Already, you're getting sexually harassed. Already, you're getting locked in inventory rooms because you don't want to sell, you can't sell the phone that they want you to sell, and being, threatened. One of the things, we push back on the narrative of fear is like, what do we have to lose? We worked retail and we work on commission. We're one of the only, every year that I would go get my taxes done, my tax guy would say, you're the only person who makes less money every year, because the boss is trying to figure out a way to restructure the commission plan so that we don't make as much money. So it's like, what do we have to lose? And we see the job declining. So we presented it to people who were fearful and saying like, this is a job actually with good benefits, or like, this is the best job I ever had. I used to work, at Target, or like whatever. We would say like, yes, the union, getting things in writing is a way to solidify and freeze the things that you like about what you have right now. It's not about starting from scratch. It's about freezing the things that we have so that they can't take them away, because already we've seen that they've taken them away. And so if we get it in writing, they can't do that.
This is shifting gears a little bit, but I'd like to tie in a little. How did you get involved with the DSA? And from there, how do you see the DSA's role and chapters' roles in labor organizing, engaging in it, supporting it, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. So fast forward after we won our contract, actually fast forward, whatever, I got fired at some point. And when I got fired for being a union activist. But what happened was, while we were taking my case to court, I got put in the organizing office of my district, of the district of my union, CWA, Communication Workers of America. And so, the union rallied around me the day I got fired. The president did an emergency thing and said, we're going to take care of our own. Bianca, we have you, make your same salary, go into the office. And so I went into the office, and I was sharing a desk with that same union organizer that I met in that subway, all those, at that point years ago, because it took a couple years. So I get into the organizers, which you call the war room, and all of a sudden I'm in corner and I have no idea. I'm put in the office with people who identify as socialists, who are organizers in the labor movement, and they start throwing books at me. And I'm following their lead. About 3 months in, they say, well, we're gonna have a meeting. And I said, okay, we're gonna have a meeting, all right, and stay after work today. I said, okay, fine. They had been doing these reading groups called the Project for Working Class Power. So I had already kind of like went to those, and it was like a group of union members who would come together on like a weekday night and talk about capitalism and talk about, corporations and the 1% and all the Occupy stuff, right? So I had said, I'm not coming to your reading group anymore. You guys are always talking about the same thing. I want action. You're giving me all these books about revolution. I want action. Call me when it's time to take action. At that point, we were mobilizing in the street for a movement for like Black Lives Matter around Eric Garner and stuff. But I would say that it seemed really divorced from anything in the labor movement for me personally. And also it seemed, and it also wasn't consistent, right? It wasn't anything that I was a part of organizing. Like I wasn't in that. So they stay after work for the meeting. Some nurses show up from New York State Nurses Association. I know some other of the, staff people are staying. So they said, Maria Svart, who's the director of DSA, is in the corner in the boardroom. And they say, well, we called you all here today because we think that we want to, now that Bernie's over, because that was after 2000, the 2016 run, now that Bernie's over, he's lost, we can all, we need to figure out a way to capture this momentum. We can't let this momentum die. And so we're trying to figure out a way to turn this into an organization. We're thinking about organizing under the umbrella of the DSA, which was at that time in New York's completely pretty much defunct. The older folks had bet you were there, but there was no activity or, anything. And so they said, well, we're here because we think that, we could do a revitalization of the New York City DSA chapter, and we can create a branch that's just for labor. And I said, I didn't even know what that meant. And then in the meeting, they said, well, you should be the coach, you should be the chair of the labor branch. And I'm like, no, I don't even know what that means. But we all joined DSA that day. And then the rest is history. I was the chair of the labor branch for the first 2 years. We built out a project that was meant to answer to social justice issues and time and issues of the time without having to wait for labor bureaucracy to approve it. We wanted to act as
Cool.
labor on our own. And I feel like we've done a decent job of that.
Which often is
thus far.
something that we can run into.
I think DSA,
Like-
I think, you know,
The process of organizing, especially unionizing itself, is a very lengthy process. It can be years long if achievable at all. That is just the nature of what it is like living in capitalism, particularly in the US, especially if you are in a state and city where there are already union busting laws and that are in place, and a precedent of people doing this. It's really hard to get that momentum and fight back. But I really love that that she was the chair of this organizing where it was focused on social justice issues, where people can react in a quicker fashion. It doesn't mean that this momentum is gone from larger unionizing efforts, but that, like, how we move the needle is that we have a timeline for things. We have action that is very quick and direct, and that can be done in a short time frame, and then we have longer types of organization that we have to engage in order to have long-lasting effects. So it's a matter of applying a diversity of tactics so that we are resisting in ways that keep up pressure, that we are seeing results, and that doesn't let momentum die, and these feelings of anger, upset, or revolutionary optimism, that, like, it has to be channeled in some place, that, like, there is a place for these different types of action. And I think something that can be lost sometimes in unionizing efforts is just the acceptance that, like, things will take a very long time, and, like, that's just I think that's just being practical, and that's healthy to be realistic, but also to understand that, like, you are bringing in people who are already primed for action, and that you can be organizing in other ways that still is funneling people towards unionizing efforts, larger organizing efforts that are part of these years-long processes, but also that in the meantime, you can keep people engaged and have this galvanizing that happens throughout this process as well.
I would say this. I do hear the other side of the argument that says that only 6% of the private sector is unionized.
And many people who are in organizing labor will say that these types of actions can be called what they refer to as structure tests, where you have people, like, go to a protest or, like, wear pins or show solidarity for a particular day where you are being more visible in the workplace, or you're doing phone banking for a particular union where you are engaging with other types of unions. So it is more of this horizontal structure that is based in solidarity, that connects people not only in your own workplace but other workplaces. And also this is very helpful and useful when it comes to social justice movements, engaging in these activist movements, because many activists are drawn towards labor organizing anyway, and making sure that you still have these milestones, because that helps with morale. It also is practical. I'm saying also a lot. It also is practical in moving towards unionizing and furthering those efforts, because it is good for people to feel like there are achievable milestones and that there are actions that can be taken to move the needle in other ways, even if it isn't as substantial or as protective or as monumental as what unionizing can be and striking is, that there are these types of things that we can and must be engaging in order to continue these efforts, and also to help trying to change the system that we're a part of.
What is the other 94% of how is this relevant to the rest of us, and about, you know, how they feel like the labor movement could be reactionary, et cetera. I get all of that, but I also do agree with the arguments that the labor movement has the infrastructure that we need. We don't need to start over from scratch. They have an infrastructure. It's a matter of leadership less so than anything else. You know, a matter of leadership and a matter of a grassroots, a rank and file uprising. So I think the project has been going great, but I think that because it takes some people a longer time to understand what the project is, it's been a little bit slower than we would have liked. I feel like it can be hard to make the connection sometimes because the work that's done in the labor part is so specific to your work site, right? Like your most of it includes you trying to organize the people that you work around every single day, the people that you encounter and share an experience with. And so whenever you have people like an organization like DSA that has a mix, there can be a disconnect sometimes, I think, or it can be hard to connect the dots for people who have never had a union job, and aren't familiar with those dynamics. But I think DSA is playing the role that it should play, which is working with rank and file activists, learning from organizers, sharing experiences. One of the things that the roots of the DSA here, the group that was the original, revitalizers or whatever you want to call it of the chapter, were folks who were adopting Verizon wireless picket lines whenever we were on strike. We were on strike for 49 days, and that shit is tiring, I have to tell you, to be screaming to the top of your lungs, walking in circles every day. It's more work than work. And we were doing that through the summer. It was tiring. And so, some of those folks, adopted a store, and they would take a shift. They would take an afternoon where we can ensure that there was still a picket line, there's still a community presence, but we can have the day off, or, have the afternoon off. That was really important. We also did some really important solidarity work in 2017 with the largest to date retail strike in the United States, with the AT&T mobility strike. They went on strike for 3 days. We had, within a day, I had to put a call out to every single chapter that I can get in touch with to say, can you put bodies on the AT&T picket line? Because these are smaller stores, right? You have a store of like 10 workers. It's really hard to build a picket line off of 10 workers, especially when these workers have never been on strike before, right? And so DSA covered 166 picket lines across the country. We showed up more than the AFL-CIO. And our union had to give a shout out and say Democratic Socialists of America, just because of the overwhelming presence that we had nationwide, because there was a strike in almost every state except for the South.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm really glad you brought up the AT&T protest, because here in North Carolina, that was a huge thing to happen here. We actually had strikes and had our members going out to the picket lines at like 7:30 in the morning, which can be a lot for us grad student types, but I definitely found it to be one of the most energizing things that we were able to do for our new chapter, and definitely built solidarity in a more concrete way, ways that we could see. I think we talk about solidarity a lot, but sometimes it's hard to see, what does that really mean? What does that look like? So can you tell us a little bit about what building solidarity could look like, and some more concrete kind of ways we could try to build solidarity with each other?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just tell a story first. There's an organization called Teamsters for a Democratic Union, which is a reform group inside of the Teamsters Union. And we have some members that were close in the labor branch to them. And I remember we took a position and we wanted to throw a fundraiser for them. And so we turned out members to a fundraiser they were having, and some people were upset, but other people were fine with it. Long story short, we throw this fundraiser with all these Teamsters. It was great. And a couple weeks later, maybe even a month later, I'm canvassing in the rain for a Democratic Socialist candidate for State Senate, Julia Salazar. And in New York, it's always really hard because all the doors are locked in the buildings. So you have to wait for somebody to come in and out. But then when it's pouring rain, it's like, oh, is somebody gonna come in and out? It was the first day of canvassing, so it was the launch. And we were really trying to we had a lot of energy and we're trying to be out there in spite of the rain. And I never forget, UPS truck rolls up, guy gets out. Hey, you from the DSA? I said, yeah, I'm from the DSA. He said, I got keys to all these buildings. I'm going to let you in all of the buildings on the block. We fuck with DSA. And I'm like, he's like, don't tell anybody I did that. Just call me Tommy the Teamster. That's solidarity, because we were able to stand with them in a fundraiser, something so small, got us into every single building, and actually made an impression in this worker's mind where, yes, the DSA is on our side. I think that those acts of solidarity are so easy, just easily doing turnout to other people's events and not centering ourselves. I can talk about I talk often about how we enter into coalition spaces. One of the things that we see whenever we were first building this thing is that, people would come in and think that entering a coalition space means bringing your own lid and, you know, having your organization's shirt on and the hat, you know, and the whole thing. And just, I'm from the DSA, I'm from the DSA. It's so off-putting. It's so not the way to build solidarity. It's not authentic. And it always, always, always will blow up in your face. I feel like the way that we enter coalition spaces is silently, wanting to learn, wanting to listen and getting a real assessment. We shouldn't even be wanting to say who we are, you know, at the moment. We should be wanting to be neutral people in a space that can have the, you know, in a space that can have the ability to assess where people are at from different places, what our role or what is our position and compared to, you know, everyone else's as far as life experience or what we're bringing to this coalition, et cetera. I just think that there's so much to learn first. And so, you know, like I'll say when we built, I mentioned the Right to Know Act was our first initiative, but when we were building those relationships with our Black Lives Matter Greater New York chapter, I went to the meetings for like a year silently, participated in marches as an individual. Yes, I'm the chairperson of blah, 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 blah. Who cares? I'm here as an individual. And it's so funny. So a year after I was going to those things, they knew me, but I never said where I was from. They messaged the DSA page and said, hey, we want to start to build relationships. Can somebody meet with us to talk to us? Well, who do they call? They said Bianca. And I went with at the time chair of the thing. And I walked in and the guy was so blown away, like, you're the DSA? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, I had no idea. And it's just like, that's a little bit dramatic. You don't need to take a year, but it's just an example. And like to this day, the relationship is solid because like I enter that space as the DSA. I enter that space as a human that's concerned with the same things that the people in this coalition are concerned about, right? Yeah. So I just think that another thing to understand in coalition spaces is that read the room, read the room, read the room, read the room. Like I know that a lot of times when we're in coalition spaces, the coalition is more liberal, a little bit more probably centric than we'd like, I'm assuming, is probably the most common experience. I would just say that, you know, navigate that space in a way that you can understand how to meet people where they're at, but still stay true to what, you know, this organization believes in. And I think there's a way to do both things. And so I don't think that we should go in, you know, being right and, you know, prescriptive and, you know, beating people down with what we think is the truth. And I also don't think that we should go in tiptoeing around, you know, and not being true or transparent about what it is that we believe and why we believe it. And I think there's a balance for people to approach it with. And also think that, you know, if you're entering a coalition space in DSA in this moment, it can be really hard for you to remember a time when we weren't liked, when we were disregarded, when we were ignored, when people didn't want us in the room. And now I know that we particularly are experiencing this in New York now because we built so much power politically through campaigns, through elections, etc. Now it's like that I have to still remind people, we have a seat at the table now because we have forced our way to this table, not because they are welcoming us to this table, not because they want us at this table. And as a matter of fact, at the first opportunity to get us out of this room, they will. And it's okay. And you can still be friendly and okay and present with people and work together and understand that you will not be liked. We are not here to be liked. We are here to make change, systemic change. And so, yeah.
Like, I think it's really cool how you point out that, you know, you didn't come into Black Lives Matter spaces saying, hey, I'm DSA, you know, let's be in coalition partners, you know, from day one, or you weren't really pushy about it. You were just coming to their spaces as someone who's working within Black Lives Matter, as opposed to just a DSA member coming to see if they can build some relationship quickly so that then they can mobilize the people with Black Lives Matter events to their events or something like that, where you actually, you know, spend some genuine time to get to know the organization and to meet the people in it. I think that's important to emphasize because like you definitely know, coalition work is pretty tricky and there are bad ways to do it. There's like ways to microwave coalition relationships, and that's just not gonna happen. It's gonna have to be something that's long-term. And even if it's long-term, like you said, you know, it's still gonna be something you have to, I guess, continually earn your place and continually do work, as opposed to, I guess, rest on your laurels with the relationship as it's been developed, and just play off of that. I want to ask you, like, about coalition work with respect to, so let me take a step back. So a DSA is a very white organization. That's something that's the case. And, you know, because of that, it kind of limits DSA's ability to take lead on certain kinds of work. It would be very strange. It would not look good for DSA to take to a very majority white organization from a very specific demographic to take a lead on certain kinds of work, particularly involving like police brutality or police abolition, prison abolition, that kind of stuff. I was wondering what your thoughts were about, like, people talk about, oh, DSA should be in coalition with groups that are political groups that are led by people of color. And what do you like? What do you think about that? How does that go? Like, what does that look like in your mind? And what would be, what are your thoughts on that? I guess I'll throw that out.
Oh, okay. So yeah, DSA should be in coalition with people who are rooted in the community. I agree with that. I think we all agree with that. I think the problem is that for some reason there's like a dynamic in DSA. Maybe it's the age thing. I'm not sure, that very few of the times are we actually from the communities that were in these DSA chapters. For instance, in New York, I know this is New York, but there's like probably, I would venture to say 80%, that might be a little high, but definitely not more, definitely more than half, I think, are not even from the city. And so that already makes makes people kind of look at you like, are you just here for now? Are you really committed, to this, place, right? And to this neighborhood and really building, are you invested? Do we have the same interests? That's what we're trying to figure out, right? Do we have the same interests? And I think that ultimately the only way to prove that is by continuing to show up and shut up, like I said. I am not advocating that anybody take, any type of abuse. So I'll say this: it's tricky to navigate those coalition spaces, particularly if you are a majority white group, trying to work with, a POC or Black-led organization. I feel like there's a couple ways it plays out. So hopefully that you are both committed, you can talk about why you want to be in coalition with one another and how you believe in a multiracial, movement. And how we want to show solidarity, not allyship, not white guilt, but how you want to show solidarity, and why actually that you're have like what's your common interest, with, you want to dismantle white supremacy? That sounds really weird for somebody who has privilege, has privilege off of white supremacy. Wouldn't that make anybody, kind of think twice? Like, well, why, why? And so I think that like taking the time to go through, why it is that you want to work together. I also think that there could be situations that we've seen, particularly in New York, where groups that are led by POC or have a majority of POC think that DSA is like a punching bag and that they can just abuse them, and that's not the case either. And I don't advocate that anybody take that kind of behavior where people are weaponizing their experience or their identity against you when you're well-meaning and doing the right thing. And if you're wrong, then you're wrong, whatever. But yeah, I think it could be really tricky. I think it could be done. I think that you just need to say from the offset that you're both committed to the same things and why you want to be, and what each of you have to bring to the cause, or to the thing that you're trying to. Because these coalition spaces are normally based off of a campaign, right? So it's not, ideally it's a long relationship, but it's not always. Sometimes they end with the campaign, and sometimes you're able to revive them for different campaigns. That's ideally what you would want. But yeah, I think getting it straight in the offset is what I'd say.
Thank you so much, Bianca. I really hope we get a chance to talk to you more in the future, because I have like a million more questions I want to ask.
All right. There we go. I really like the topic about showing up consistently. Okay. So, thank you, Stuart Little is my son. 8-month streak. Happy 8 months. Okay. So, this is by Haymarket Books. This is 3 years ago. So again, a few years old, but I think it is tried and true. These tactics where we can engage all along the spectrum of timelines, like how I was mentioning before, and also to make sure that we are engaging in ways that are most effective. Aww. And you redeemed your message. Thank you. Okay, so we won't be able to finish this, but we'll watch a little bit of this. Again, playing this at a higher speed, just to get through as much as possible.
Welcome, compañeras, compañeros, compañeres, to today's discussion titled Credible Strike Threats, Global Supply Chains, and Choke Point Organizing. This event is sponsored by Internationalism from Below and Haymarket Books. Internationalism from Below, or IFB, is a relatively new organizing project of a network of socialist activists that seeks to build transnational solidarity with and between movements for social justice and democracy. My name is Lala Peñaranda, she, her pronouns, and I'm fortunate enough to be the moderator for today's discussion. I'm an activist from Colombia with a background in agrarian organizing, and I'm the Latin America coordinator for Trade Unions for Energy Democracy, also known as TUED, which is a global network of trade unions, approximately 96 trade unions in about 27 countries, that works on issues related to the just transition and supply chains as well. So that is me. I guess I'll also mention that I'm a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, and Science for the People. And it's my pleasure to introduce these three lovely comrades who will be enlightening us activists who are in need of, sort of experience and guidance from people who have dedicated their lives to studying strategic troublemaking on a global scale, which is just an amazing life career to have. So we have leading experts on global labor struggles and strategy, Robert Ovets, Gifford Hartman, and Ben Norman. And let me just frame today's discussion by saying that, as we all know, the supply chain crises in the aftermath of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic provides us all an opportunity to reflect on the vulnerabilities of the just-in-time model of capitalist production. And as capital analyzes and prepares for risks to the global supply chain, so must we, workers, if we are to make global systemic changes needed to reverse the many catastrophic crises facing the planet. The new issue of the journal New Global Studies features a forum on workers' movements and the global supply chain, which examines unions and global labor organizing in 7 countries, identifying and assessing strategies for cross-border worker organizing at these strategic choke points to apply pressure, extract gains, and tip the balance of power in our favor, the workers' favor. So I'm going to ask my comrades to first just tell us a little bit about their personal stories, how they got involved in this work, and sort of where I guess their heart lies in these in this work. And I'll start by asking Robert, then Gifford, then Ben, and after those introductions, we'll continue on to their presentations. So Robert, please welcome and take it away.
Well, thank you, Lela. Thank you for having us. And I also want to just thank Jake Wilson, who's unable to be with us. He was my co-editor of the series that you were referring to. So a little bit about myself. I'm a senior lecturer in political science, which means I'm an untenured professor at San Jose State University. And I teach classes on labor relations, organizing political campaigns, advocacy campaigns, as well as U.S. and California government and international relations. And I think what really brought me to this work originally was when I realized that mainstream politics just didn't work. I had actually worked in the Texas legislature for 2 representatives, and I realized that that was really kind of a dead end in some way. And so while I was in college, I actually tried to organize 2 unions in Texas, which is not an easy place to do it. They weren't successful, but ultimately, I caught the bug of labor organizing. One was of graduate students, and one was at a little food co-op. And the food co-op one really bombed really badly because it turned out my partner at the time was on the board. And so that didn't just blow up, but it also blew up a relationship. When I came back to the United States after living abroad for a long time, I had been working for non-governmental organizations. I even ran an NGO. And I realized that that direction also was a dead end. And so as a part-time, non-tenured academic, I started to throw myself into labor organizing. And I came across this really amazing book by an incredible labor scholar, Manuel Ness, and Jake Wilson. And it's called Choke Points. And it's an incredible book, and it really got me thinking about where our organizing can be most focused to have the greatest impact. And that's really what led me to this work. And so I want to give my nods to Jake and to Manny Ness. And if you haven't seen that book, it's quite an extraordinary book. And that led me to put out my second book, which is an edited collection with Pluto called Workers' Inquiry and Global Class Struggle. My first one was on the history of labor militancy in the United States from the 1870s and 1920s, which was a long time project that I worked on before I came to this particular aspect of it. And that was republished by Haymarket a few years ago. And then I've got one more book coming in just 3 weeks, which is a class analysis of the U.S. Constitution and how workers really pushed those who wrote the Constitution to write it in the way that they did. So that's really kind of how I got to this work. Thank you for asking, Lela.
Great. So fortunate to have you here, Robert. Gifford, over to you.
Okay, and thank you for everyone for hosting us. My trajectory is a little different. As a university student, I got radicalized by the anti-apartheid movement on college campuses across the U.S. I was going to school in Berkeley, and it was really important to have a vision of the world, how people's struggles elsewhere were really important. And I learned about a solidarity action that happened here in the Bay Area where I live. In 1984, longshore workers in the International Longshore and Warehouse Union boycotted a South African ship. And they did it for 11 days. They had to fight the riot cops to defend their boycott, but it really resonated with me. And I was a young student, so I saw the anti-apartheid struggle. I learned about the strikes and the struggles in South Africa, but then I saw the possibility of international solidarity. And in 1990, when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, he did a speaking tour across the United States, and his last event was in Oakland. And I actually went to the event at the baseball and football stadium, and I heard him thank the ILWU, the longshore workers who did the solidarity action. So it really implanted in my mind that that was a badass union that I should be aware of. And soon after, a year or two later, I was working in a call center, and we organized a union, and we joined the ILWU. And in being in the union, that union probably has some of the highest industrial wages in the United States, and it maintains control with a master contract at 29 ports on the West Coast. And it really does leverage its ability to control those check points. And in being in the union, I got the union education, which is wonderful, thorough, and I learned about how the union was born. It was born out of an 83-day West Coast port strike that struck the major ports on the West Coast of North America, and that's how the union was born. And it got so intense because they were so able to shut down commerce that 2 workers were shot in San Francisco, and that launched a general strike that lasted 4 days. And again, that was kind of the birth of this union that I became part of. So I was always in tune to what was going on in the ports. And when the Gulf War started in 2003, we tried to do a solidarity action with the people struggling against war in, at that time, Afghanistan and Iraq. We did a demonstration. We had the consent of the ILWU, and the Oakland police came out shooting and shot non-lethal rounds at us. So we knew we kind of hit the right target, maybe not with sufficient numbers. And that played out again during Occupy, and we went back to the Port of Oakland. And if any of you remember, in November 3rd, 2011, we actually shut down the Port of Oakland. So we finally did what we've been planning to do all along. And it was kind of a glorious day. I can't even, even today, I get goosebumps thinking about it. And I saw the potential of hitting the right choke point with the sufficient numbers, the right action, the right ability to leverage that power. And since then, I've been working with railroad workers across North America. Being around the ports, I was connected to truckers, kind of back to Robert. I met some truckers at the biggest port complex in North America, Los Angeles, Long Beach, and I stayed in touch with them as they struggled. And I saw the need to connect all the various sectors along supply chains. And again, with what I learned about South Africa when I was young is looking across oceans and seeing cross-border solidarity is crucial. And that's why I'm here. Thank you.
I'm just so honored to be in this conversation with you. And before passing it over to you, Ben, so far, this 100% confirms that the most important qualities in comrades is really that sensitivity towards outrage, anger, and then also this sensitivity to goosebumps, right? To feel yourself inspired, motivated, and curious about beautiful people fighting for liberation. So thank you both. And Ben, please, lean into this. Both Robert and Gifford were cut us short in telling us about themselves. So just lean into it. Tell us, about your background and what brought you to this work, who inspired you, etc. Take your time.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you, and a great pleasure to be invited to speak with you. I mean, it goes against every British instinct I have to share my goosebumps moments with you, but I will do my best to get past that. To give you a bit of a background on myself and my work, so I'm Ben Norman. I work as a researcher, an industrial researcher for Unite the Union. We're the largest general workers' union across the UK and in Ireland as well. Predominantly, my work is with manufacturing workers, so particularly in the auto sector, but also metals and down the supply chain. Various is a natural part of that work. Really, the need for supply chain organising, as I sort of we'll go on to discuss later today, that's just become more and more of a necessity in terms of what workers are facing. I think there's been a long recognition, particularly with the workers I support, that they can no longer just fight the bosses within the 4 walls of their factory. They have to, if they're going to mount a credible resistance or fight back to what workers are doing, then they have to do that down the supply chain. They have to understand their employer as a multinational and going far, far beyond the forms of strength that our unions in the UK traditionally relied on. In terms of my own background, I mean, I think like a lot of people in this country of my generation, I really came into activism through the Stop the War movement from 2003 onwards, and then was really turned far more towards community organising, or really activism, as we tended to more refer to it then, around 2010 when we had the anti-austerity movement, so just before Occupy really also came to these shores as well. And so really working with the local trade unions in my city, I'm down in Portsmouth in the south coast of the UK, a small coastal city, a dock city. And it was really coming through that movement, I suppose, which is really where I learned my, my beginnings of my socialism, my activism. But I think a key moment for me really was in 2009. And then going on from there, when we had a large occupation of what was at the time the UK's only wind turbine manufacturing facility. The company were planning on asset stripping that. The workers went into occupation, which at that time, at that moment in the class struggle in the UK, was absolutely not a common feature of what was happening. And you saw the community galvanising around that. You also saw the environmental movement galvanising around that. So we had activism galvanising around that, which was very powerful. But then the thing that really flipped the switch in my mind was then seeing the unions come in and really have a proper worker organising approach, which is really ultimately what was able to take the employer on in that particular dispute. And I think that was really a moment the penny began to drop in my own understanding of the importance of trade union organising and worker organising. And I think that's something that's happened in the UK more generally, right? I think people have tended to not call themselves activists anymore. Now very much people refer to themselves as organisers. And I think that general understanding and appreciation has begun to shift in the UK of the differences between those things. I think I joined Unite the Union in 2014, again, in a staff role. I've had a number of roles within the union in that time. And it's been an absolute pleasure for me to work with a heroic series of organisers that we have in our union, both at the shop stewards and the worker level and full-time organisers, and indeed other researchers, and some of the work and the campaigns that they have done to take on employers, win the fights of victimised shop stewards, have been absolutely inspirational over the last few years. And I think the trade union movement in this country as well has gone through a series of political changes. We've had things like Brexit, we've had the Jeremy Corbyn movement, and now there's a big question mark about what comes next, and I'll go on to discuss a little bit of that in my own intervention later on. But I think the fundamental thing which is missing in this country for a long time is that independent rank and file shop stewards movement. And I think there's a growing realisation of that. There's a growing move towards that, which is why the strike wave in this country has been so important. And I think what we've seen in the last year, and again, I can go on to touch on this later on, in my union, we've had the election of Sharon Graham, who's the first female general secretary of our union, an old historic trade union, and she's very much committed to rank and file power, building the shop stewards movement, supporting workers going into dispute. And I just this morning came off the picket line at Felixstowe, the largest UK container port, and that absolutely is my goosebumps moment. If we can see 2,000 UK dockers walking off a job over the last 4 days, and the absolute disruption and anarchy that's causing down major supply chains, whilst at the same time we see rail workers, postal workers, hundreds and hundreds of disputes just in the last couple of months alone. I think this is the most exciting time to be in the UK labour movement, really. It's certainly in the time I've been alive, maybe for several decades before that. So that's the goosebumps moment with that, and I'll leave it at that, but delighted to speak with you today.
Thank you, Ben. That's an epic morning that you had. Thanks for sharing that. So I have a lot of questions for you, but I think that in order to make time and maximize that time of questions at the end, we should just get right into the presentations. Fortunately, these lovely comrades have made the task of moderation as easy as possible by creating presentations. So without further ado, I'll just pass the microphone back to Robert. And yes, Robert, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Lela. So what I'm going to talk about is credible strike threats. And this, just to piggyback a little bit on my background, is in 2016, one of my unions, the California Faculty Association, had issued a strike threat. And then within a few hours, had settled with the university system. And so I wanted to try to understand whether or not this strike threat would have led to an actual threat, would have resulted in an actual strike, and whether that threat was actually credible. And because we didn't get to go on strike, I spent the next couple of years really thinking about what a credible strike threat is. And I just want to give a shout out also to Helena Worthen, who really got me thinking about how to assess whether or not a strike threat is credible. And I originally started this project with her. She's a labor educator from the San Francisco Bay Area. And I eventually started a project where I, with a research assistant, gathered information over a 5-year period, issued either formally or informally. So it really got me thinking about strike threats. And like Ben's talking about having a hot summer in the UK, which you can track on Strike Map UK. I just want to give a shout out to that incredible project. In the United States, we've also had far more, as far as I can tell from my assessment from last fall, and during this 5-year period that I looked at. We've actually had, during these 2 periods, small samples, we've actually had far more workers involved in organizing and making strike threats and actually going on strike in the United States. So what has led me to go down this path to look at strike threats is that ultimately we really want to be able to be strong enough to win. And so when workers are making strike threats, ultimately these are strike threats that we want to make sure turn into strikes that are effective. However, what we tend to overlook is that the strike threat itself can also demonstrate that we're powerful enough in order to extract concessions and build our power and tip the balance of power, whether it be in the shop floor of a particular single workplace, or whether it's across an entire employer's work sites, or it's through an entire industry, or even perhaps at the level of a general strike across a particular geographical region. In order to really understand this, I use what's called a workers' inquiry. A workers' inquiry is a method that allows us to assess our strength and develop tactics and strategies before we make a strike threat. This is something that I lay out in more detail if you're interested in workers' inquiries in my second edited book, which came out a couple years ago. So I'm going to focus for a few minutes on how do we actually assess our strength and develop those tactics and strategies, and then Gifford will follow me and talk about how to identify where choke points are to ensure that workers have really kind of come back to the center of a lot of our discussions. You may have heard of the labor organizer and trainer Jane McAlevey, who does a lot of very well-attended workshops on building workers' power. Of course, through labor notes, there are many trainings on how to build power in the workplace. And so you've probably, if you're listening to us right now, you've probably heard of a gradual tactical escalation. And what's important about that is that it's used towards building towards a strike. And this can occur in a number of different ways, and I'll come back to some more examples of this, but just as a small sampling, it could be through an official strike vote by a union if you have a formal union organization. For me, a union means any group of workers that are organized and taking action, whether or not they actually are formally recognized, either if they're public employees by whatever labor relations authority exists or at the federal level. Another way to recognize gradual tactical escalation towards a strike is through organizing a formal strike committee, excuse me, signing strike pledge cards, picketing or carrying out marches on the boss, engaging in sick-outs or go-slows or work-to-rule actions. Unfortunately, the New York Times ran a story yesterday about quiet quitting. We should just call it what it is. These are work-to-rule actions, or setting up a strike fund. These are just a few possible examples in which workers are engaged in organizing and gradually escalating, turning up the heat on their tactics as they move towards a potential strike, whether they're threatening to strike or not. For example, throughout the UK, a few weeks ago, there were a number of wildcat strikes of workers in Amazon warehouses. This then inspired workers in the Inland Empire in Southern California in one Amazon warehouse to walk out on strike. They obviously were building towards, we're learning more about what happened, but these Amazon Workers United obviously were building some sort of organized presence on the shop floor and organizing with fellow workers and essentially use their power to walk out and disrupt the operations of the warehouse over a couple of days. So once we recognize that there's tactical escalation going on that may be towards a formally declared threat to strike or what looks like a potential movement towards a strike, we should be asking ourselves, what makes a strike threat credible? And so I think of credibility as being based on the idea that if the boss don't pay a cost, the strike will be lost. So a tactical escalation towards a strike threat should be something that ultimately would result in cost to the employer if the strike was to happen. So what makes that strike threat credible? There's two aspects to this. That credibility has to be credibility to the boss, to the employer, and it also has to be credible to the workers, whether they're the workers that are involved in the organizing and the tactical escalation, but most importantly to the other workers that are on the sidelines, interested, supportive, but not yet involved, and then those who are disengaged, and even those that are opposed to potential efforts to move towards a strike. So let's take one at each time. So one in turn. So the first one is, are the strike preparations credible to the employer? So when an employer assesses what's going on the shop floor, they're looking at the workers who are taking these tactical escalations in action. They will engage in a cost-benefit analysis to assess whether it's costly now to give the workers all or some of what they want, or whether avoiding settling now would result in a costlier strike later on that they may end up giving even more. So a strike is likely from that perspective of the employer, either when the employer wrongly assesses that credibility or correctly sees that those workers lack a credible strike and will ultimately carry out a strike that's unsuccessful. For example, it will have very few workers involved, or it won't last very long, or it'll kind of dwindle and fall apart, or there's a limited time that they're striking, whether it be 2 hours or 24 hours, so they just wait it out. An example of a strike threat that I think was credible was the UC Lecturers Union, the UC-AFT, which had made actually 2 strike threats in the fall of 2001, and ultimately the UC settled on quite good terms, quite an improvement of the work conditions and pay and benefits for the lecturers. The second perspective is, are the strike preparations credible to the workers? And there are several ways to assess this. For example, is there gradual tactical escalation? Do the workers see that other workers are getting involved? They're taking, starting with small actions, taking increasing escalation in the pressure that they're applying. Does this attract more workers to get involved? Is there bottom-up member self-directed organizing, or compared to perhaps staff-led organizing? Are those that are getting involved a visible supermajority of the members, and are they making a commitment to strike? Is there a disruptive power at particular choke points that can increase the cost of a potential strike and thus bring a greater likelihood of it resulting in gains for those workers? Is there a strike fund, and is it sufficient to allow the workers to engage in an open-ended strike? For example, right now there's several thousand mental health professionals in the Kaiser hospital chain in California that are engaged in an open-ended strike. Do they have a record of taking previous strike-related action? And were those previous actions resulting in successful outcomes for the workers? Is there sufficient media coverage? In other words, is the public learning about that strike? Is there a publicity impact on the employer? And is also that publicity attracting support both on the shop floor and from perhaps other unions or other workers, other members of society in the community? And so does that result in public support from potential outside allies? So you can see on the slide that this is an image of a T-shirt from my union's strike threat back in 2016 that I was talking about, and I think it illustrates what is not credible in the kind of messaging that a strike threat would take. The T-shirt says, "I don't want to strike, but I will." I think that's a self-contradictory message, and ultimately what I evaluated and found was that our strike threat was not credible, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So in my chapter of my book, Workers Inquiring Global Class Struggle, I discuss what makes a strike threat credible or not credible in more detail. And then I present what I call a scorecard. And so I developed this method by which we can score these different elements. This is the total scorecard. It's very small, so I'm going to break it down and just briefly discuss each part of how we can use the scorecard to assess our strike threat, to see how credible it is to the workers, but also to the employer. So the first part, and there's a lot in there, so I'm just going to briefly just kind of summarize, is I classify it into three categories. The first one being what labor scholars call organizational power. In other words, how are the workers organized in that particular location? So I look at, this card allows you to look at how well the workers are organized in their particular workplace or at their employer. Are there organic leaders? Are there previous forms of cooperation among the workers? Is it self-directed organizing? And a number of other features. And then you provide a point or a fraction of a point for each one, and then note that any details that you want to provide. And you add those up for the organizational power, and you have a maximum of 15 points. The second is positional power. This is more related to the kinds of things that Gifford and Ben are going to be talking about. Of positional power of where that workplace is actually located in the supply chain. And then also the relationship among between the workers across different boundaries of division, whether it be race or ethnicity, and then also connections with other unions at that workplace. For example, we have 6 unions in the California State University system. The UCs have over 20, and then across the different work sites as well. And then also it brings in supply chain analysis for looking downstream and upstream, which is what Gifford's going to talk about. And so you score each element for the positional power and with the 7 maximum points. And then the last category is a category that I think should be added to this lexicon. This was developed by Manny Ness and Jake Wilson, and that's the factor of disruptive power. And essentially, what's the potential impact of the strike threat, not just at that local work site, but also across the employer, across the industry, nationwide, and also internationally. And then what are the details of the impact up and down the supply chain? So how does it impact supplier firms or receiver firms? And then what's the level of potential disruption to the entire sector and to the national and global economy? And then what's the whether or not there's high or low level expected cost to the employer? And is there open-ended duration of the strike? There's 20 possible points for that, and then scoring a total of 42 possible points. When I assessed our own strike threat in 2016, we ended up with a score that was about 17 points. So it was incredibly low. It would not have been an effective strike, and it's very likely that we would have lost. But because the employer probably correctly evaluated our strike threat as not credible, they instead offered us a settlement that was very sparse and very unsubstantial and really unsatisfactory. However, it was approved by the membership in a vote. So Gifford and I have done these talks before, and we build in a training, and we're going to skip the training part, but we last did it at Labor Notes in June. And what I do after presenting this part of the analysis of assessing whether or not a strike threat is credible, I then have everyone who's attending form into groups of about 4 to 10 people, and I give each group a strike threat scenario, and I ask them to discuss the scenario. So each group gets one of the scenarios, and then I ask them to discuss 2 questions. Is this a strike threat? Why or why not? And if it's not, what would make it a strike threat? And then second, if it's a strike threat, is it credible? And if it's not credible, what would be needed to make it credible? And then I have them report back, and we discuss whether or not it's a strike threat and whether or not it's credible, or what would be needed to make it credible. So I'll just give you just 3 brief examples, and then I'll turn it over to Gifford. I have more of these scenarios, but just a sample scenario. I'll just give one because I see I'm past time. Is first, this scenario is that the union president assembled the usual suspects, including religious leaders, local politicians, and union leadership for a press conference to announce a strike in 1 week. It will last for 4 hours unless management returns to the bargaining table. There's no strike fund, and of nearly 200 workers, only about a dozen people have signed up to picket. So then I ask the group to discuss, is this a strike threat? Clearly, it's a strike threat. Is it credible? Not very credible. There's no demonstration of tactical escalation in any way. There's no bottom-up organizing. There's no demonstration of member involvement. And certainly there's all the structure tests that Jane McAlevey refers to are missing. There's no element of any worker involvement at all. So it's unlikely to be a credible strike threat. And those 4 hours will probably pass without any real developments, and maybe even the employer not returning to the table. In the trainings, we then break down these scenarios, and we discuss them, and we try to rewrite them and redevelop them so that we can make them into potential credible strike threats.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Robert. This is extremely helpful. And before passing it over to Gifford, I'll just say, a lot of times in the union.
That's what we have time for so far. But we'll continue tomorrow. Okay, it's the time of day where the shininess comes out. I should technically powder my nose, but whatever. Okay, so switching gears to literature story time. We are reading The Scarlet Pimpernel, and in the previous chapter, Marguerite and Sir Andrew Folk got to France, and they are at an inn, this boarding place. Storytime clubs. Exactly. Ooh. Okay, I'm done. So that I don't ruin my books. And we see that Marguerite is extremely condescending, along with Sir Andrew talking about how the place is evil smelling, when in actuality, people are forced into these conditions because of the class that she married into and her betrayal of people who are in this class that she's demonizing. So, they find out that Sir Percy, her husband, has been seen around, and that they are excited because they're like, okay, he's still alive. We still have a chance to intercept him before Chauvelin does. So this is chapter 23, and it is called Hope. Oh, something that is lacking a lot these days in this dystopian hellscape, but we don't necessarily want them to have hope. Them in the ruling class. So. Okay. "Faith, madam," said Sir Andrew, seeing that Marguerite seemed desirous to call her surly host back again. "I think we'd better leave him alone. We shall not get anything more out of him, and we might arouse his suspicions. One never knows what spies may be lurking round these god-forsaken places." Yeah, so poverty means a place is god-forsaken. "What care I?" she replied lightly. "Now I know that my husband is safe, and that I shall see him almost directly." "Hush!" he said in genuine alarm, for she had talked quite loudly, in the fullness of her glee. "The very walls have ears in France these days." He rose quickly from the table and walked round the bare, squalid room, listening attentively at the door, through which Brogard had just disappeared, and whence only muttered oaths and shuffling footsteps could be heard. He also ran up the rickety steps that led to the attic, to assure himself that there were no spies of Chauvelin's about the place. "Are we alone, monsieur, my lackey?" "Nope," said Marguerite gaily, as the young man once more sat down beside her. "May we talk?" "As cautiously as possible," he entreated. "Faith, man, but you wear a glum face. As for me, I could dance with joy. Surely there is no longer any cause for fear. Our boat is on the beach, the foam crest, not 2 miles out at sea, and my husband will be here under this very roof within the next half-hour, perhaps. Sure, there is naught to hinder us. Chauvelin and his gang have not yet arrived." "Nay, madam, that I fear we do not know." "What do you mean?" "He was at Dover at the same time that we were." "Held up by the same storm, which kept us from starting." "Exactly, but I did not speak of it before, for I feared to alarm you. I saw him on the beach not 5 minutes before we embarked." "Why didn't you say that, bitch? That would have been helpful to know." "At least I swore to myself at that time that it was himself. He was disguised as a curé, a parish priest. So that Satan, his own guardian, would scarce have known him. But I heard him then, bargaining for a vessel to take him swiftly to Calais, and he must have set sail less than an hour after we did." Marguerite's face had quickly lost its look of joy. The terrible danger in which Percy stood, now that he was actually on French soil, became suddenly and horribly clear to her. Chauvelin was close upon his heels. Here in Calais, the astute diplomatist was all-powerful. A word from him, and Percy could be tracked and arrested, and... He's not all-powerful. Like, he does have a position in the revolution, and the tide has turned so that they are in power more than the aristocrats. The aristocrats are scared, as they should be. But they are severely overestimating his reach. And I think that is intentional for fear-mongering reasons, to make the readers afraid of the working class and revolutionaries and uprisings that are fighting against these unconscionable hierarchies of human dignity that capitalists and the ruling class benefit from. Every drop of blood seemed to freeze in her veins. Not even during the moments of her wildest anguish in England had she so completely realized the imminence of the peril in which her husband stood. Chauvelin had sworn to bring the Scarlet Pimpernel to the guillotine, and now the daring plotter, whose anonymity hitherto had been his safeguard, stood revealed through her own hand to his most bitter, most relentless enemy. Chauvelin, when he waylaid Lord Tony and Sir Andrew Fulk in the coffee-room of the Fisherman's Rest, had obtained possession of all the plans of his latest expedition. Armand Saint-Just, the Comte de Tournay, and other fugitive royalists were to have met the Scarlet Pimpernel, or rather, as it had been originally arranged, 2 of his emissaries, on this day, the 2nd of October, at a place evidently known to the League and vaguely alluded to as the Père Blanchard's hut. Armand, whose connection with the Scarlet Pimpernel and disavowal of the brutal policy of the Reign of Terror was still unknown to his countrymen, had left England a little more than a week ago, carrying with him the necessary instructions which would enable him to meet the other fugitives and to convey them to this place of safety. So again, like, trying to have buy-in for being a class traitor by saying, like, oh, Armand and Marguerite, these 2 people who are part of the working class or were part of the working class, have switched sides because they see the brutality of what's happening. It's like, bitch, Armand was beat very severely. He was beaten because he loved an aristocrat's daughter. Like, I don't think he would be so easily willing to trade sides. So it's suspending disbelief, creating this sort of delusion and dreamlike state that, oh, it is a moral good for people to be on the side of aristocrats, the ruling class, the people who are oppressing them. This much Marguerite had fully understood from the first, and Sir Andrew Fulk had confirmed her surmises. She knew, too, that when Sir Percy realized that his own plans and his directions to his lieutenants had been stolen by Chauvelin, it was too late to communicate with Armand or to send fresh instructions to the fugitives. They would, of necessity, be at the appointed time and place, not knowing how grave was the danger which now awaited their brave rescuer. Blakeney, who as usual had planned and organized the whole expedition, would not allow any of his younger comrades to run the risk of almost certain capture. Hence his hurried note to them at Lord Grenville's ball. Start myself tomorrow, alone. And now with his identity known to his most bitter enemy, his every step would be dogged the moment he set foot in France. He would be tracked by Chauvelin's emissaries, followed until he reached that mysterious hut where the fugitives were waiting for him, and there the trap would be closed on him and on them. There was but 1 hour, the hour start which Marguerite and Sir Andrew had of their enemy, in which to warn Percy of the imminence of his danger, and to persuade him to give up the foolhardy expedition which could only end in his own death. But there was that 1 hour. Chauvelin knows of this inn from the papers he stole, said Sir Andrew earnestly, and on landing will make straight for it. Okay, then why did you go there? He has not landed yet, she said. We have an hour's start on him, and Percy will be here directly. We shall be mid-channel ere Chauvelin has realized that we have slipped through his fingers. She spoke excitedly and eagerly, wishing to infuse into her young friend some of that buoyant hope which still clung to her heart, but he shook his head sadly. Silent again, Sir Andrew? She said with some impatience. Why do you shake your head and look so glum?" "Faith, madam," he replied, "'tis only because in making your rose-colored plans, you are forgetting the most important factor." "What in the world do you mean? I am forgetting nothing. What factor do you mean?" she added with more impatience. "It stands 6 foot odd high," replied Sir Andrew quietly, "and hath name Percy Blakeney." "I don't understand. Do you think that Blakeney would leave Calais without having accomplished what he set out to do?" "You mean, there's the old Comte de Tournay." "The Comte," she murmured, "and Saint Just, and others. My brother," she said with a heart-broken sob of anguish. "Heaven help me, but I fear I had forgotten." Okay, so this brother that you, supposedly were caring enough about that you betrayed your husband to, that you now are like, "Oh, I forgot about him." Gross. "Fugitives as they are, these men at this moment await with perfect confidence and unshaken faith the arrival of the Scarlet Pimpernel, who has pledged his honor to take them safely across the Channel." Indeed, she had forgotten, with the sublime selfishness of a woman who loves with her whole heart, so only loves her husband with her whole heart. She had in the last 24 hours had no thought save for him, his precious, noble life, emphasis on noble, because he actually has a title, unlike her brother. His danger, he, the loved one, the brave hero, he alone dwelt in her mind. Because money and class. "My brother," she murmured, as one by one the heavy tears gathered in her eyes, as memory came back to her of Armand, the companion and darling of her child, the man for whom she had committed the deadly sin which had so hopelessly imperiled her brave husband's life. "Sir Percy Blakeney would not be the trusted, honored leader of a score of English gentlemen," said Sir Andrew proudly. Do they have honor? "If he abandoned those who placed their trust in him. As for breaking his word, the very thought is preposterous." There was silence for a moment or two. Marguerite had buried her face in her hands and was letting the tears slowly trickle through her trembling fingers. "Oh, you mean the tiny, white, dainty fingers? Because, supremacy, white supremacy, and patriarchy." The young man said nothing. His heart ached for this beautiful woman in her awful grief. All along he had felt the terrible impasse in which her own rash act had plunged them all. He knew his friend and leader so well, with his reckless daring, his mad bravery, his worship of his own word of honor. Sir Andrew knew that Blakeney would brave any danger, run the wildest risks, sooner than break it, and with Chauvelin at his very heels, would make a final attempt, however desperate, to rescue those who trusted in him. "Faith, Sir Andrew," said Marguerite, at last, making brave efforts to dry her tears, "you are right, and I would not now shame myself by trying to dissuade him from doing his duty. As you say, I should plead in vain. God grant him strength and ability," she added fervently and resolutely, "to outwit his pursuers. He will not refuse to take you with him, perhaps, when he starts on his noble work. Between you, you will have cunning as well as valor. God guard you both! In the meanwhile, I think we should lose no time. I still believe that his safety depends upon his knowing that Chauvelin is on his track." It's like he probably already knows. Or, he should be suspecting that if he is smart and aware, careful. "Undoubtedly, he has wonderful resources at his command. As soon as he is aware of his danger, he will exercise more caution. His ingenuity is a veritable miracle." Yeah, he has a lot of resources because he's rich and has generational wealth, because he's the richest man in England, second to the royal family. Then what say you to a voyage of reconnaissance in the village, whilst I wait here against his coming? Reconnaissance. You might come across Percy's track, and thus save valuable time. If you find him, tell him to beware. His bitterest enemy is on his heels. "But this is such a villainous hole for you to wait in. Oh, you can't possibly be in this area where people do not have titles and land." Nay, I do not mind, but you might ask our surly host if he could let me wait in another room, where I could be safer from the prying eyes of any chance traveler. Offer him some ready money, so that he should not fail to give me word the moment the tall Englishman returns. Yeah, because money solves everything. To them. She spoke quite calmly, even cheerfully now, thinking out her plans, ready for the worst if need be. She would show no more weakness. She would prove herself worthy of him, who was about to give his life for the sake of his fellow men. For only some of his fellow men, okay? Sir Andrew obeyed her without further comment. Instinctively, he felt that hers now was the stronger mind. He was willing to give himself over to her guidance, to become the hand, while she was the directing head. Again, wealth. That's why. He went to the door of the inner room, through which Brogard and his wife had disappeared before, and knocked. As usual, he was answered by a salvo of muttered oaths. Yeah, good. You deserve it. "Hey, friend Brogard," said the man peremptorily. "My lady would wish to rest here a while. Could you give her the use of another room? She would wish to be alone." He took some money out of his pocket and allowed it to jingle significantly in his hand. Brogard had opened the door and listened, with his usual surly apathy, to the young man's request. At the sight of the gold, however, his lazy attitude relaxed slightly. He took his pipe from his mouth and shuffled into the room. Yeah, it's not because he doesn't have loyalty, it's because people are being forced to be in desperate conditions. He then pointed over his shoulder at the attic, up in the wall. "She can wait up there," he said with a grunt. "It's comfortable. I have no other room." "Nothing could be better," said Marguerite in English. She at once realized the advantages such a position hidden from view would give her. "Give him the money, Sir Andrew. I shall be quite happy up there, and can see everything without being seen." She nodded to Brogard, who condescended to go up to the attic, and to shake up the straw that lay on the floor. "May I entreat you, madam, to do nothing rash," said Sir Andrew, as Marguerite prepared in her turn to ascend the rickety flight of steps. "Remember, this place is infested with spies. Do not, I beg of you, reveal yourself to Sir Percy, unless you are absolutely certain you are alone with him." Even as he spoke, he felt how unnecessary was this caution. Marguerite was as calm, as clear-headed as any man. Because all men are clear-headed? Yeah. No. There was no fear of her doing anything that was rash. "Nay," she said with a slight attempt at cheerfulness, "that can I faithfully promise you. I would not jeopardize my husband's life, nor yet his plans, by speaking to him before strangers. Have no fear, I will watch my opportunity, and serve him in the manner I think he needs it most." Brogard had come down the steps again, and Marguerite was ready to go up to her safe retreat. "I dare not kiss your hand, madam," said Sir Andrew, as she began to mount the steps, "since I am your lackey, but I pray you be of good cheer. If I do not come across Blakeney in half an hour, I shall return, expecting to find him here." "Yes, that will be best. We can afford to wait half an hour. Chauvelin cannot possibly be here before that. God grant that either you or I may have seen Percy by then. Good luck to you, friend. Have no fear for me." Lightly, she mounted the rickety wooden steps that led to the attic. Brogard was taking no further heed of her. She could make herself comfortable there, or not, as she chose. Sir Andrew watched her until she had reached the loft and sat down upon the straw. She pulled the tattered curtains across, and the young man noted that she was singularly well placed there, for seeing and hearing, whilst remaining unobserved. He had paid Brogard well. The surly innkeeper would have no object in betraying her. Then Sir Andrew prepared to go. At the door, he turned once again, and looked up at the loft. Through the ragged curtains, Marguerite's sweet face was peeping down at him, and the young man rejoined to see that it looked serene, and even gently smiling. With a final nod of farewell to her, he walked into the night. And that's the end of chapter 23. The next chapter is called Death Trap. Ooh. And we're pretty close to being done. Let's see how many chapters there are. 31. Okay, and so we're at 24. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to be reading The Bluest Eye. Or I guess we aren't reading, but we're embarking on Banned Book Club for this. We're reading the foreword. We're reading the first chapter. Let me see. So, it goes to page 32 before it starts the section. Here's the house, it is green and white. It has a red door. It is very pretty. It is very pretty. Very pretty. The reason that was so haltingly said is because it's a run-on sentence, essentially. Just like one word. Love. Toni Morrison, just incredible. Okay, so we'll read to page 32 of The Bluest Eye. I'm very excited. We will be listening to more of Toni Morrison speaking because duh. And that will prep us for talking about the reading section. And I'll give more updates on this AI data center. There's a meeting happening tonight, an educational one. So I will report on what is going on there. And we'll continue or finish that video that we started by Haymarket Books just before the reading on credible strike threats, global supply chains, and choke point organizing. Because this is imperative for our movement in mobilizing and organizing so that we can have as much of an effect as possible with striking and also hopefully with large-scale striking, like general strikes. Okay, that's it for me. But thank you for being here. It was good chatting with you all. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.